Mary Costigan, town attorney from Bernstein Scher. So this is a presentation that I've given several times, but it's much more interesting if you just feel free to just pop in and ask questions, and I'm happy to answer them as we go along. I have an associate from my office, Ryan Lazanik. He's going to kind of learn the ropes here a little bit, but also jump in on one topic that he's done a lot of research on. So we'll get started. So we're going to cover today essentially Freedom of Access Act, but that covers lots of things. This is the Declaration of Intent of the Freedom of Access Act, and that's just for your information. So we're going to break this up into two different topics. One is public meetings / proceedings, and the other is public records. And of course, there's an overlap of the two. So public proceedings are those that are the transactions of the town and any board, commission, agency, authority of the municipality. And we're going to get to what does that mean. And once you meet the definition of a meeting, it triggers the open meeting requirement, and it essentially also triggers a notice requirement. And that's what this is all about. So you start at the very basic as what is a meeting, and I'll get to it. But for example, if a quorum of the council is having an email conversation about a topic that is the business of the town, an actual substantive topic, that is a meeting. And because the public can't attend that and can't be noticed of that discussion, then that should not happen. So that is a meeting. Once a meeting occurs, it triggers all these other things. So here we go. This is the requirement to have an open meeting for the public. Of course, there's exceptions to that, and we'll get to that. And here are the ones that can be closed to the public are executive sessions or other statutory examples such as poverty abatements. And so here's the communications out. Sorry, I need my I don't need my glasses to see this, but I needed to see this. So here we go. I'm going to do it better. There we go.
Ask her to speak closer to the
So getting on the topic.
Mary, can you
Yes.
speak up just a little bit?
Oh,
A
sure.
little bit closer
Is this
to
probably
the mic?
better? Okay.
Perfect.
So getting on the topic of the emails that I talked about. So here's the communications outside of a public meeting that can or cannot happen, right? So it doesn't mean you can't talk to each other or the public outside a public meeting. You can have telephone calls, you can have emails, but again, you have to be careful about once there's a quorum of the council or the planning board or the Board of Appeals, once there's a quorum and you're all talking about something substantive, that's a meeting and that cannot happen. You can certainly talk and email about what your availability is for a meeting, you know, how you're going to set the agenda, very broad logistical topics, or you can talk about your families, you can go to a party together, you can go out to dinner together as a group, as long as you don't talk about the town business. Once you're talking about something substantive, that is a meeting. And so here we go, the common violation is polling members by phone to discuss an application. You meet at a party and you start talking about, you know, a topic that's on the agenda for next week, those types of things.
Mary?
Yes.
When you say polling members by telephone to vote on or discuss an application, does that mean like if I called Mike and say, hey, Mike, what do you think about X topic? And then that conversation ended and then I had another conversation with Tig, is that polling, or would it only be if I called Mike and then got Tig on the phone and then we had
Right.
three of us
Yeah.
on that one call?
Correct. So a technical violation of FOA is if you were all on the phone together and you were all talking about what you were going to do. But you're correct. If you just called one person, that is not a violation. If you called and you had, and you know, you would not be able to get done what you have to get done if every single conversation you had only happened in this room. We know the realities are that you're going to be having individual conversations with each other, with the public. The hope is that you're not having a conversation as a group. You're not doing anything that kind of would be a decision-making type of thing. And also that those individual conversations that you're having, once you get into this room, you're sharing, you're not saying, I talked to so-and-so last night, but you are at least sharing publicly your opinion, your viewpoint, how you got to this place. So there is some transparency, and you are discussing, not necessarily every conversation you ever had, but at least sort of the place that you've gotten to as you're thinking about this, having conversations with people, et cetera. Because of course, one common complaint from folks in the public sometimes is and I'm not saying this council does this at all, but certainly I've seen other boards, select boards or councils get to a meeting and they don't even talk because everyone's like, oh, did you already talk about all this? And they just go through their agenda and they're like, vote yes, no, and they don't even discuss it. And it's pretty apparent that a lot of the discussions have happened somewhere else and not in that room. So just be careful about that, even if you are doing some polling, just to have some transparency with the public. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about shared Google Docs? Because that would be, like, Google
Yeah.
Docs and text would also be under electronic communication, right?
Yeah. So I think I don't know how much you guys would, like, edit a document per se, but it's probably, it applies to zoning board, to planning board, and your folks. So let's say Bridget sends out a packet for a meeting, and it has to do for you guys with an amendment or with a thing that's in front of the planning board. She can do, a one-way communication and have you review the Google Docs, but any sort of commentary on that document should really be individual between you and Bridget or done in a public setting. If you have a document that this whole group is seeing and you're seeing each other's edits and you're kind of working through edits of a document, that would be a violation.
Mary, but wouldn't that still, but if the document's public on the website, is that still considered a meeting when you're doing that? Like, so if you're kind of working through the document and the comments are there, you can see that, how?
So when it's on the website, are they seeing the comments in real time?
The comments would be saved in the document, for example. Like
No,
if you were
I mean,
making comments
yeah.
in the,
I think it would be very odd, but the only way would be to have the public to have full access to the Google Doc, right? And they're making their own comments. You're really having it really is a form of a substantive conversation about the document among everybody if you're seeing everybody's edits. And I get it. It is certainly helpful because the kind of snail mail way of doing it is really to give your individual comments to Bridget, and then she's kind of either making edits or talking about it at the meeting. And if she makes additional edits, she is then sending it out to everybody. It is this weird kind of ping pong to just make sure that you're not having the conversation among yourselves, and it's just, she's like the focus point here, and there's like all these prongs out there, and then you're around here, But the Google Doc situation is interesting. I don't know if it's come up in like FOA discussions. That's the first time I've been asked that question. It's really
does that
interesting.
apply to just, so citizens on a committee participating in that is the same as someone who was someone who was appointed to a committee as someone who was elected, right? It doesn't really matter what the setting is or who's on that communicating in that document.
So we're going to get to what I think there's a slide here about sort of what is a public body, but if you have a committee that's been created by the council, like a subcommittee, and that committee has 3 or more members, that is a public body that if they meet, they have to be open to the public, and they are, doing the business of the town, then that would be a public meeting, and what they do among themselves is also would trigger all of this. Okay. So this is the right for the public to attend and record. You can, of course, have reasonable rules impacting that, but you can't have something that says you can't record. But you can try to limit that to the best of your ability. So here's the public right to comment. And this is the reasonable opportunity on matters addressed. So reasonable opportunity on agenda items. I know, most towns, you have your regular, just general comment period, but this is also talking about the matters that you're actually addressing on the agenda. They should have the opportunity to discuss. But getting to your subcommittee, if subcommittees are meeting and kind of have having a business meeting, workshop type of thing, the public can observe, but they don't have the right to speak on the topic.
Mary, real
Yeah.
quick question on that. If we're going to set an item for a date, all we're doing is, so we bring it up this meeting to set it for the next one. Normally, we have not allowed public comment. Is that okay?
Yeah,
It is.
that's just administrative. It's not substantive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, someone doesn't have the chance to say, but I'm going to be on vacation that day. I think you have it on another day. Yeah, no.
Okay, thanks.
So question is then, with that, when you meet in these sessions, does that all have to be minuted? Or it's like if you have a workshop and you're just, it's public, it's open,
Right.
and you're just kicking around ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, you don't have to have public comments on workshops. These are at your regular meetings when you're actually doing business, voting on things. I would call a workshop a special meeting and not like a regularly scheduled meeting. Yeah.
So in there, it says that we can put, reasonable standards for governing public comment, including time limits and conduct standards. Is there a range of like what reasonable is for time limits?
Well, we're going
everybody
to,
has,
the
like-
time limit, yeah, I mean, it's usually 3 to 5 minutes. I do think that if you had a complicated topic and you gave people, I think you would know what reasonable is. I mean, if you gave people a 1 minute limit, that's, you can't say much in a minute. But certainly 3 and 5 are common, and I think that would be deemed reasonable.
And to follow up with Andrew, if
Yeah.
we do 5 minutes, but if we wanted to shorten it, because we know we're going to get a lot of people coming
Yeah.
in for an item, we want to get down to 3, no issue.
No issue, no.
Good, thanks.
No.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, yep.
That reasonable 3 to 5 minutes, is there any sort of case where that was determined to be reasonable, or is this kind of open and we're just kind of there until someone
There's no,
sues? What
yeah,
is
exactly.
that? Where does it come from?
We are hanging out in a place until somebody sues. I don't think that there's been, do you know of Ryan's going to talk about a federal case about limitations on public comment, but
Okay.
limitations about really more related to substance, because many public meetings across the country can be quite volatile. And so, but in terms of time limits, I'm not aware of a
Okay.
case. So we're just continuing until somebody sues. You're right. Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. So this is the case that he's going to talk about.
All right, good evening, everyone. Ryan Lazanik, again, one of Mary's colleagues. So when you're thinking about public comment, most municipalities have a public comment policy, whether it's written down or whether it's orally stated at the beginning of the meeting. But it's important to remember, and Mary touched on it really briefly, is that public comments are constitutionally protected forums, right? So folks have a First Amendment right to go give their public comment, right? Even if it's like 3 minutes. So there was this recent case, Blanchard v. Augusta Board of Education. Augusta actually lost this one. They had in their policy that that you couldn't say gossip, you couldn't say abusive or offensive language, you couldn't have vulgar language, those sorts of things they had in their public comment policy. And what the federal court said was, you can't do that. And so they said restrictions on gossip is unconstitutional, abusive or offensive language is unconstitutional to bar that as well as vulgar speech. They did carve out some exceptions for defamation. They didn't really specify what defamation means in this context, but they did say you can prevent people from giving defamatory comments, as well as you can prevent folks from hate speech, right, or disrupting a meeting, shouting, harassment, those sorts of things. But generally speaking, if somebody is being quote unquote offensive, right, that's not something you can shut them down for. The sort of the tricky part with this is that the court wasn't very clear as to what constitutes offensive or abusive versus hate speech, right? And so this is something that we don't have a lot of guidance on right this second, but it's just something to think about when you are looking at your public participation policy and those sorts of things, and just something to think about going forward. Sure, go ahead.
I think the standard is, I know pornography when I see it.
Yeah.
And when I see
it's fair.
somebody being vulgar and disrespectful, and I think there's children in the room, I'm going to stand up and put an end to it.
I think that's fair. I think it's a straight face test. Yeah, to some degree. Yeah, so.
Do you have a written policy on public participation in meetings?
Yeah.
Do you know if it has any of that type of language?
Or maybe just on public comment, what's in the charter.
Right.
I don't think anything else.
I don't think it does.
Okay, it doesn't, because what this is talking about is a written policy that says, you have 5 minutes to talk. While you're talking, we're not going to stand for any offensive, abusive language. That's the kind of stuff that has to be taken out if you did have something like that.
No, we don't.
But it's also guidance for not cutting somebody off just because you don't like what they have to say.
And can I ask a question? That would also apply for like us as a group discussing. Like we're a pretty respectful group, right? For the most part, but I would imagine that all of these kind of freedom of speech type of, or they apply to us as
Right.
well, right?
Yep.
So like if I said something that Denise thought was abusive, Denise isn't able to cut me off, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Lily,
I'll cut you
Sorry.
off with my fist. I'm just kidding. That's violence, and you're not allowed to do that.
Take the woodshed.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right, so this is when you are allowed to speak privately. Probably the two most frequently used sections of the statute for executive sessions is probably personnel or talking with your lawyer. Or real estate probably comes in a close third. So this is the section on the having private conversations on personnel matters. It's very broad, but it's really designed to protect the employee. And the first paragraph, it's interestingly written, but essentially it's very broad if you read it the right way with the right commas. So, discussion or consideration of the employment, appointment, assignment, duties, promotion, demotion, compensation, evaluation, disciplining, resignation, or dismissal of an individual or group of public individuals, appointees, or employees of the body. And then it's or the investigation or hearing of charges of complaints against a person subject to the following. So those four things actually only apply to the investigation or hearing of charges of complaints against a person. You can do all of the other things without having to do those four things. Get it? So it's the idea that you have to let the individual know, invite them to the meeting, allow them to have it open in public, is only if you're really talking about an investigation of actual complaints against the employee, and you're about to discipline them, you're doing an investigation. But if you just want to discuss somebody's employment or their appointment, et cetera, you don't have to follow those 4 things.
What are the rules for noticing for executive session? You know, except for if we're gonna have a public meeting, you have to notice X amount in advance, and you know, in these certain ways.
Yeah.
Executive session.
So that's a good combo question that I'll talk to a little bit later, but I'll answer your question now. So there's notice requirements to begin with, generally, of public meetings, and that is executive session. That's everything, right? The statute only actually requires you to have reasonable notice. You may have your own notice requirements. Certainly, planning boards and zoning boards have more precise requirements for how far in advance you provide notice for certain topics. But generally, reasonable is reasonable. You can, if something comes up in an emergency and you need to have an executive session in an hour, you can do it. Notice is deemed reasonable under the circumstances, right? So you blast it on your website, you send out an email, you put it on your social media, we're doing this. You just have to make best efforts. You wouldn't do that in practice, right? Notice then trickles down to sort of due process and, procedural due process. So if you did, like, this is an example that you would never do, but if you did that on a regular basis and you held really important, meetings on ordinance changes or some topic, and you don't give people reasonable notice to actually get there and talk about it, especially if it impacts someone's property, there are repercussions. But there's nothing preventing you from doing something on short notice if their circumstances make you have to do that. So this is the employment. Here are the other permitted executive sessions. Real estate is another frequently used topic in executive sessions. There's a lot that you can discuss within that topic without including me. So many times, you could have discussions with the town manager about different real estate proposals, et cetera, in executive session. Because the idea is you would never, want to talk about that stuff in public because it would weaken your bargaining position. E is when you need to talk to me about something, and that's pretty broad. F is when you're talking about something, if you're talking about something that relates to records that are actually confidential in and of themselves. And then H only applies if your code enforcement officer has separate authority to bring an enforcement action in court on their own. Sometimes that's misinterpreted as being able to talk to your code enforcement officer privately as a group, but that's only for those code enforcement officers that have specific authority to go to court by themselves. If not, you'd have to bring me in on that conversation with the code enforcement officer on an enforcement matter. And here are the restrictions on executive sessions, and this comes to not just timeliness of notice, but the motion. And so it would appear on an agenda, and it would appear with as much specificity as you can, but because of the nature of executive sessions, specificity is difficult to come by. So it's a balancing issue when it comes to how much you disclose. It's usually pretty limited in the actual public motion. But you do want to cite to the actual letter of the statute, those paragraphs that I went through earlier. You would cite to whatever paragraph it is that you're utilizing. Any other questions on executive session? You're not going to take notes in executive session. You're not going to talk about what you talked about in executive session, outside executive session. You're not going to make any votes in executive session. You probably know all that stuff. So here's the notice of public meetings, kind of building on what we talked about earlier. And this top one is, I really wish they would change it because it can be interpreted two different ways. One is that if the body or agency itself is made of 3 or more people, anytime any one of that group meets, it's public, which I don't think is a good interpretation. Most municipal attorneys interpret that provision as simply just saying, if you have a quorum of your public body, it's a public meeting. Because that's the point at which you can actually make a decision, do something that matters. So it's an oddly written section that municipal attorneys can talk about for too long. But I just generally come back to quorum. And here's the notice being reasonable and ample time to allow them. And then the emergency meeting, you can notify the media and just get it out there as well as you can. So this is decisions. So written decisions, the council's probably only doing decisions on licenses and probably not much else, but this really, these written decisions are really going more to the boards of appeals and planning board. This is, and keep in mind, this is just the statutory requirement, okay? You're going to have your own requirements for when you're going to do written findings of fact. I would say that every board needs to do written findings of fact anyway, but the statute is talking about if there's a conditional approval or a denial, you absolutely have to put it in writing and give it to the person. I guess if you just give them approval, everybody's happy and they go on their way and they don't need anything in writing according to the statute. But there could be other people that are mad about it, so, which is why we have to have a planning board or board of appeals do written findings. And of course, written decisions for employment. This is the remote meeting provisions. This was created very quickly in 2020, as we all remember. It has been modified a little bit since, but not much. I mean, the general rule to keep in mind always is that if one member of the public body has to participate remotely for some reason, you have to then triggers the public being able to allow to attend remotely as well. You can allow me, staff, other folks to attend remotely without triggering that, without opening it up to the public. You know, if you have a planning board meeting and there's an architect that lives in California, just having them attend remotely does not open it up to the world. But if a planning board member has to attend remotely, then the public has to be able to attend remotely. Any questions about remote meetings? Okay. This is remote participation.
I have a question
Yeah.
about a really specific non-hypothetical thing that happened somewhere in the US where they had a virtual meeting and a bunch of angry people descended upon the Zoom, started spouting hate speech and whatnot. So what do you do in that case? You give them 5 minutes of comment and then mute them? Like how do you handle that exactly? And what constitutes threatening behavior to where you can just drop them from the meeting without doing something illegal?
So it's really related to that Blanchard case, right? And so if it's happening in the moment, you can absolutely mute them and cut them off as soon as it becomes disruptive to the meeting, offensive, not offensive, I shouldn't use that word, just, real hate speech, something that's just beyond simply, hurt somebody's feelings, right? But other municipalities in Maine have had this issue, and what that issue typically comes up when the remote meeting platform they're using is not easily controlled. So what most municipalities who have had that issue, like Rockland had that issue, Portland had that issue, what they've turned to is more of a webinar platform where if you're a member of the public, you're just viewing, you cannot just randomly speak out. You actually have to raise your hand, be physically unmuted, be able to speak, be invited in. So you would just have to, the platform you're using is important. And then if you do invite that, and you can have rules, like you have to have, I know, it might be Cape Elizabeth has a rule that if you're participating remotely, you have to have your name. You know, you can't be like Apple computer number 1. You know, we want to know, we want to see your name, we want to have you there. There's other towns where when you're signing up for when you're getting on the webinar, you actually have to register, they have your name. So there are ways to protect you if something like that happens. You know, you can do certain things to protect yourself before it happens, such as the platform.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions about public proceedings? Because we're going to move on to public records. Okay. So public records is even broader than a public meeting. It's essentially anything, either written, printed, graphic, electronic, that is in possession of the town and has been prepared related to a transaction of public business. The one thing there's two important things. One is the possession piece, because many times a member of the public will write in and ask you essentially to almost like, I've had people ask for, you know, the clerk to make a table for them of, you know, of different, nobody has to actually create something out of the data that you have in order to answer a FOA request. You only have to provide the data. And then they can take it and do with it as they wish, and it's only the data in the form that it's in. You don't have to doctor it, you don't have to do anything to it. Of course, you'd have to redact it if there was private information in there, but there's no obligation to actually do anything other than give them a giant stack of paper that they can do with it as they wish. There's a whole bunch of public records exceptions. These are the common ones. There was some random LD 251, I think last year or the year before, that was public information in possession of a public sewer system. That clearly, when something's that specific, some very specific situation happened when someone's information was provided that they weren't happy about. So that came out of that. There's certain economic development documents that are confidential in this list: TIF submissions, poverty abatements, et cetera. This one's interesting where most communication from a member of the public, if they're emailing any of you, that is a public document. The only stuff that is confidential really is the types of things that are in this paragraph. And then the other one that's interesting is this last one: email addresses that are collected by the town to, let's say you had a weekly newsletter and somebody signed up for that newsletter, that email address is not public. But if somebody emails you directly, as soon as they hit send and they're talking to you about business of the town, that email address is public. You can't blacken it out.
Quick question, just out of curiosity, the second bullet in there, municipal statutory exceptions include personal records, certain TIF submissions. Forest management plans?
Yeah.
Do you know why that?
Probably because they're tax related. The tree growth and open space programs are tax programs. So there's probably, this is all referencing, the MMA has a whole page, and I have this document, there's so many separate references in the statute about confidential documents. This is confidential, this is confidential. These are just a few examples, but tree growth and open space are tax programs, so it's probably the financial information they're providing for those programs.
So if a member of the public emails in to all of us, understood that it's public record. However, if that then becomes a part of the minutes, did they, like, is there, there's, I mean, GDPR obviously doesn't hit us here in the US, but some states have, you know, more important, or privacy laws we're seeing are more common. So does that, because the minutes are then published on the website, right? So is there any protection there, or should we be asking for consent to put an email into the minutes, especially when we know they're going to go onto the town website? Or is it just like, hey, as soon as you email us, your email can then become public because it's part of the public record?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a good question. Just because it is a public record doesn't mean it has to be published, right? And so, but on the other hand, especially I know planning boards, and if somebody has a public comment and they decide to email that and not send a letter, that email is either read, but it's also that is an important part of the record, because it's an adjudicatory proceeding and you actually are building a record. If somebody has an opinion about something that the council is reviewing, but it's not really necessary, it's part of the record of the meeting, but not as essential to, let's say, a record of an adjudicatory proceeding, that if that was appealed, that whole body of work goes to the next reviewer. It's not as important to really, I don't know if I'm saying that, you don't actually have to do it for everything. It's not as important, say, I'm just trying to have an example. I don't know, you're setting the mill rate tonight, right? And lots of people have lots of opinions. You don't necessarily have to publish everybody's email or opinion. It's not necessarily, a record that has to be maintained as it is. It is just kind of is what it is, that people had things to say about it.
Is there like a best practice then for, maybe what I'm after is the best
Sure.
practice, right?
Yeah.
Like if I email,
Yeah.
I might not know, like a lot of citizens have no idea about any of this, right?
Right.
And so it could be a little frustrating, or we wouldn't want to break trust with them if all of a sudden their email address
Yeah.
and email were
Yeah.
then published in the minutes
Sure.
and then showed up on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, blah, blah, blah. it's
And
all
when you
there.
say published in the minutes, you're saying published as part of the record of the meeting, like the whole meeting.
Yes, but
Yeah.
that then goes onto the
Right,
town website,
yeah.
right? And
So,
sometimes it
so you
falls
could do
into-
two things. You could decide as a town what you are and are not going to put on the website. If you decide that everything's fair game, I think you would have a disclaimer somewhere where do you have something on the website that says click here to have a public comment? So if you have something that says click here to submit a public comment, you would say, please be aware that all public comments are posted to the website. Just so somewhere somebody knows where it's going. It's not a legal requirement, but I think if your concern is that people don't know that their comment's going to be on the website and you want to give them a heads up, that's probably the place to do it, wherever they kind of click to comment.
But that's different than their email address. Or so my concern
But their
is
email address is on the comment. Is the comment, right?
if they go through the website, but when an individual emails our town council and we all get it, and then that email goes into the minutes,
Yeah.
they haven't done that through the website.
I
They've
guess,
done
yeah.
that because they've emailed all 7 of us, right?
I guess I was talking about wherever whether you're clicking on whether I'm clicking on your email address to email you, or I'm clicking on, planning board at cumberlandmaine.com, either way, wherever you have an actual like ability for somebody to click on an email address to send a message, you could have that disclaimer language in that location. So if there's a website with your bio on it, here's how you can email Tig, here's her email address, you just say, please note that if you are commenting on an agenda item, this will be published on our website. You could do something like that.
I have a follow-up question to something similar. When we'll get like a flood of emails on a particular topic, I know it was Tig's practice as chair to go to every single individual and ask, would you like this to be published in the meeting minutes? Like to give everyone an opportunity to say yes. And it's very kind of you to do that. It's also slightly inefficient. So I don't know if there could also be some sort of language, or, I mean, we can come up with this on our own, but as far as like, if you want it to be included in the minutes, please say so in your email so that we don't have to follow up with each individual person and kind of adopt a policy of not putting anything in the minutes if it comes via email, or putting everything in it if it comes via email, just so it's not like having to reach out to individuals to try to see who wants it included or not.
I think it's difficult to pick and choose.
Yeah.
Who's up there and who's not. Did you have something to add that, like, practice that you guys have?
Yes.
Yeah.
So with the planning board and across town, we've had a rash of spammers. And so I've redacted just blacked out email addresses on applications because they're reaching out to applicants and asking for thousands of dollars and faking to be
and
me.
fees, yeah.
And so I know that I have the full public record,
Yeah.
but I've chosen as best practice to not publish
Right.
publicly emails or phone numbers of applicants coming forward.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of draws a parallel to what you're asking. You could publish the email and exclude, or you could publish the written email, the words, and exclude the email address. And, maybe no harm, no foul. I mean, you come forward, your name's going to be associated with your comment, but your email address does not have to be.
Right. But it doesn't have to be published, but it's still public. So if somebody saw that email and wanted that email address, they could come into the office and get it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing on planning board because they just get spammed. Everything I post is some
I've
spammer
heard about that.
finds it
Yeah.
and
Well, and
asks for money.
you have bots now. It's not just
Yeah.
human
Right.
spammers. There are bots just scraping
Yeah.
and that's what my concern would be, is if
Yeah.
we start to have those available on the website.
Right.
Like, the
It
tech's
is,
there.
yeah. It's also, I mean, I don't know how high maintenance it would be for somebody to go in and redact every email address. I mean, that's also a lot of effort.
So, Mr. Chair, Brenda does that in the minutes of your meeting, so she does redact your email when we post it. So, just to let you know that
She
we do
does,
have-
she redacts email addresses? Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, then it's already done. But know that if somebody wants it, they can still get it. They want it bad enough.
So question, so when we do get these emails on the council, right, talking about an issue, do those have, I mean, they are public record, but do they have to be posted in a subsequent set of meeting minutes or anything?
They don't have to be. So there's a big difference between something just being a public record, right? As soon as somebody emails you about a topic of town business, that is a public record. Meaning, let's say I'm going to just use the mill rate as an example. Somebody gets mad about it tonight. Tomorrow morning, they have a FOA request saying, I want to see all correspondence about the mill rate. That document, that email that you got today about it is public, and somebody can get a copy of it. It doesn't mean that you have to publish every single comment that comes in. And that's the whole point of FOA, is that not everything is published, and because of that, they can come in and ask for it and get it. So it doesn't all have to be published, no. Any other questions? So this is about FOA requests. Who's your FOA officer? Do you know who you're designated?
The town manager.
Oh, Matt is, okay. So this is, it's over the years, it's gotten pretty loose, and essentially, It doesn't even have to be in writing. They could run into Matt in the grocery store and be like, hey, can I get all these documents? Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be in writing. They don't have to say why. They don't have to do anything. And anybody can ask for anything public anyway. So this is really for Matt to know, which he does, but it's also for you to understand what type of time frame he's talking about, right? So he'll get a request. The only thing he has to do within 5 working days is essentially acknowledge receipt. And if he knows that he's absolutely going to deny the request, as opposed to a denial is we have it and we're just not giving it to you, sorry. That's different than we're going to look and we might not have anything that's responsive. That's not denial, that's just we don't have anything. You have to do that all within 5 days. Once you hit that 5-day response, you essentially just have a reasonable amount of time to get back to them. You can go back and forth and ask them to, narrow the scope of that. And you do have to try to give them some idea of what's reasonable, but it's certainly recognized that staff is not supposed to put a FOA request ahead of regular business. The FOA request response goes to the back of the line, and they get to it when they can. And that's just how it is. Do you guys have a good, do you know, I mean, I know some towns have a decent way of just kind of culling through emails. It's very difficult with so many different ways of communication to really get a good handle on the number of documents that you actually have, and because it's text messages, it's emails, it's a whole host of things. And some towns have it down a little bit better than others. Chris, do you know?
Everything we have is archived through our IT.
Mm-hmm, yeah, so you can just search.
We would start with our IT
Yeah.
and start going through the archives, but we save all that information.
Yep. And so you do need to save things that are sent to you, and emails and text messages, et cetera. My advice always is, if you need to talk about something sensitive, pick up the phone, because a conversation that happened 5 days ago cannot be discovered through FOA, especially if you have to talk to me. With email correspondence with the town attorney, it doesn't get the same protection as your private attorney. We have, under the privilege rules, we have our own special paragraph that says, well, not everything with a public attorney is quite as private as with your private attorney. So the things that are protected, that are discussions with the town attorney, are things about kind of ongoing or threatened actual litigation. But if I'm talking to you about an ordinance or this or that, that's all public. So if there's something sensitive you want to talk about, just pick up the phone. It saves everybody a lot. There was a recent change in the law that does allow you to deny an unduly burdensome request. And this is kind of along the lines of these spammers and bots and, people just out there just collecting data and doing massive requests. Or it's also could be every town has that one individual who's just relentless about everything and just consistently wants to have everything. You can deny them. There's certain things you have to go through, but sometimes it is worth doing that to put an end to it. You can charge. That's really for Matt, but you can charge for time and actual pieces of paper. And then the violation, I've had a couple, and right now in one town we have somebody suing the town, but the maximum fine is $500. Attorney's fees are only paid to the individuals suing if they show really like bad faith and malintent on behalf of the municipality. Each circumstance I've had where somebody has sued, it kind of goes back to what I said before, which is it is very difficult in these large requests to really get your hands on every single document. And so if you do your best to give them every single document and a couple weeks later, they're like, wait, I didn't get that document. And then you go, oh yeah, oh, sorry, here you go. Most people go, great, thanks. There's a couple people who go, you hid that from me, I'm suing you. So that's the situation we have. That's not something that leads to attorney's fees. Something that leads to attorney's fees is evidence that you actually purposefully withheld something. And so just don't do that. Public access officers, this is Matt. The public access ombudsman is Brenda Keelty at the state. And I always mention her because if you have any questions, you can't call me or whatever, you're sitting at home and you're curious, her website is great. She has this whole FAQ section and it covers everything and it's fantastic. So if you ever needed to have a question there, then just check out her website. So there is FOA training requirements. You have to complete a FOA training within 120 days. And actually, I believe that reading the FAQ on the website counts as training the last time I looked. So this is training. This is good. So if you're new and you need your training certificate, see Matt. He'll write something up for you for tonight as your training. There we have it. There are some specific questions that are more specific to adjudicatory proceedings, so I'm happy if the planning board has questions, or the Board of Appeals, or I could come and we could be kind of more specific about what the ordinance says and what you have to do and how to write decisions and all that kind of stuff, and I can do that separately, but this is just kind of broadly FOA.
Anything from the planning board? Any questions of Mary?
No, Stacy, do you have anything?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't at the moment. I'm still learning after 40 years.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I do this.
Yeah, the one thing that does come up a lot of times with planning boards, and it's the and zoning boards, and the difference between the council, like elected officials versus appointed officials who are doing adjudicatory proceedings, is that the folks up there are elected because they have opinions and because they have positions and they talk to people and they're out. You guys are appointed because you don't have opinions. You're not necessarily allowed to have opinions. You are appointed to follow the book of rules that are in front of you and figure out if someone meets them or they don't. And you are also obligated to not be talking to the public outside your meeting. You're not, because you're an adjudicatory officer. You can't have discussions with the applicant. You can't have discussions with the neighbor who hates it. You're everything you're doing is in that room. You're not doing your own research. You're doing everything in that room, and that's really important. The difference between the two boards. Yeah.
But on that sense, we do, as the planning board, we have the ability to initiate ordinances. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of
Right. That's a non-adjudicatory proceeding. Yeah.
that we still have got the
Yes.
power. But
Yeah.
the other thing, and so if it's related to dealing with an ordinance,
Mm-hmm.
the public can contact it. But if it's
Yeah.
if it's something before the planning board for
Right.
everything, they have to address the board, and we
Right.
have to publish their, what generally we do is we read their comments
Yeah.
at the beginning of the public comment session.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
the other thing that we aren't allowed, my understanding is to, once we have closed public comment, we cannot reopen it. Is that correct?
You could reopen it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have rules that say you can't, but you would have to there would have to be a reason for that, right? I mean, let's say you close public comment and you start deliberating and you get to an issue and you're like, we really should get more input on this, or we didn't get any input on this, we don't have the right person here. You can decide to stop the meeting there and open a public hearing on this specific topic to take more information. It's rare, but generally, of course, we all see it, right? You close public comment, you start deliberating, and people from the audience start shouting at you, and they want you to reopen the public comment. That's the time when you say, no, we're good. We have everything we need. It's only the circumstance where you find that you don't have everything you need.
Right.
You're not forced to make a decision when you don't actually have everything you need, or you don't feel you have everything you
So
need.
in general, you really shouldn't do it unless
Right.
there's really a pervasive
Yeah.
reason.
From my perspective, it makes my life a lot easier, and it makes it much easier to defend your decision and defend the town if we have a nice, clean record. Public input started, public input ended, deliberation started, and then there was a decision.
Any quick questions from the council before
Oh, you have to
we
go.
start
Yeah.
in a couple minutes?
I'm all set. Thank you.
We'll take a break.
Okay.
Mary, thank you for coming
Welcome.
tonight.
Yeah,
And we'll take a break, come back in
Excellent.
a couple minutes.
thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of August 10th. First order of business is the approval of minutes from July 27th.
Be happy to provide you with a motion. I move to approve the minutes for July 27th.
Is there a second?
Second?
By Bill. All those in favor? And one abstention.
Two.
Two abstentions, I'm sorry. Somebody had a good vacation.
Oh, yeah. I missed you all.
Missed you too.
The next item of business is the business organization highlight. And I'll turn this over to the vice chair.
Thank you very much. So, our esteemed chair assigned me with some homework, which was to come up with a business or organization in Cumberland to highlight tonight. And the first thing that I thought of was Springbrook Farm and Market, established over 200 years ago here in Cumberland on Greeley Road. It's a place I go to often, and I was biased in my selection, but I think objectively it's a great selection. So I would like to ask Jeff Story to come forward and give us a little bit of information about farm, what you do, what you might do in the future. Just introduce people who haven't already learned about you.
Well, thank you for the invite. Much appreciated. Great to see you all. I know most of you. So yeah, Springbrook Farm and Market on Greeley Road. I operate that. We supply the community with meats and vegetables and services. I've taken over from the Fowlers and the Blanchards. They're still pretty committed in helping me and pushing forward. So like I say, most of our income is driven by retail from the community. We raise and process and sell meats, pork, beef, chicken, eggs. We have a commercial kitchen on site. We make meals. We sell all this to the public. We have a butcher shop where we process our own meats that we've raised. We do logging, we do snow plowing, we do a bunch of services and help out. But it's great to be in this community. We're haying on almost 400 acres of land between North Yarmouth, Cumberland, and Falmouth. It's getting harder and harder to find open space, but 400 acres is a pretty good thing to keep us busy for the summer. So much appreciated all the effort from the community around us.
Any questions for Jeff while he's here? Jeff, thanks for coming tonight. I know you also do turkeys at Thanksgiving.
We do, yeah. We do about 200 turkeys a year right now. And all of, like I say, everything we do gets sold out the door of our market on Greeley Road. We do a little bit of wholesale stuff to a couple restaurants close by, but most of it goes right out the door to the community. So it's great to work with everybody. It's enjoyable to watch and see who's around us and what we do for them. So,
go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I will just say the quiche is amazing. If you would go to the market and get the quiche, you will not be disappointed, or the frittata, whatever it is. The big egg-based thing that you can stick in your oven and not cook it, and it's just amazing. And also, if you are not wanting to do the whole courses for Thanksgiving thing, reserve your amazing Thanksgiving dinner directly from the market and pick your sides. Best cranberry sauce ever. So that's my endorsement there.
I would love to give credit to the employees I have. I have about 12 employees, 10 to 12. Some of them are part-time students in school. Some of them are full-time. I employ a chef and a baker and a meat cutter and a full-time farm, so I can't do it alone. So I employ the people around us. Most of them are local and are right around the area as well. So they do a fantastic job keeping my shelves full. It is a daily grind to produce more. We're lucky to have the sales that we do.
Maple syrup Sunday?
We've had trouble with that in the last couple of years.
Rain.
Between the rain, one year we had all ice, 2 inches ice at night. It's a lot to put together, and it depends on where we are with staff and weather. So We haven't done it in the last 2 or 3, I think 2, but we have done it many times in the past. It is a big draw. I like doing it.
I'd like to say that I think I'm there at least once a week.
You sure are.
I am.
I like to say hello to you every time.
Exactly, and you know, credit to your daughter Sophie there. She's doing a good job running the market, and I encourage folks to go there and get the share, right? The you know, put some money down and get the
Yep.
discount, right?
Yeah, we offer a membership program where we pay an amount of money and I give back 10% more than you paid in. So it's a pay-ahead type of plan. We do in different increments. We do $150, a $300, and a $500 share. People seem to enjoy that. A little debit card that goes with it and makes transactions easy, get in, get out. So
Good fresh chicken, beef, all good stuff.
we try, we do our best.
Do a good job.
How about a little history lesson today, or maybe just a little bit of education? You farmers went from throwing hay in the back of a wagon and pitchforking it up into the barn, and then they went to a rectangular bale, and now we cut it and roll it up in a round bale, and sometimes we put it in a plastic wrapper. Can you tell me why?
Well, mainly for speed. I mean, I just came out of the hayfield. I did have to roll on the ground a little bit before I came here because I didn't get dirty during the day. But no, mainly speed and production. I've even gone to a hands-free system where we don't actually touch the bales until we stack in the barn above 30 feet high, mainly because of labor. I mean, how many kids do you know now that want to come down the farm and throw hay? It's getting harder and harder. I do have a pretty good crew. I won't say I don't, but it's just the amount of speed. I mean, we're doing, on an average there right now, 1,200 square bales, 300 round bales. I've got into tractor trailer trucks, a lot of automation just to be able to get it done, so rather than having 20 people around. So that's where I'm headed with it.
Are you able to get a second harvest this year with the hay, Jeff?
Yeah, we started off pretty good this spring. It is dry right now, but a lot of stuff got growing before the drought. Well, we didn't have much rain in July at all, but we've got quite a few fields that got a pretty good start before that. So we'll have a second cut on a lot of it.
Anybody else? Jeff, we can't thank you enough.
Well,
Buy local, buy often.
greatly appreciate the invite, and I thank you all.
It's nice carrying on the tradition down there where you,
Yeah,
We've all been.
I mean, just personally, I've been there for, well, since I was 13, so whatever the math on that is, a long time ago now. But, you know, it's always been in my heart. So when the opportunity arose to take it over from the Fowlers and the Blanchards, I jumped right on it. And I have a long-term lease on the property, and my daughter is in line behind me to continue. So we don't
great
plan
news.
on getting out of here very soon, so I'd rather have it be enjoyable and continue what we do. So thank you all.
thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Before we start with the manager's report, I'd like to just take a moment to recognize a couple people. Last week, August 1st, we lost Bob Benson. Bob Benson was town manager here for 25 years. He came here in '78, retired in '03, and then Bill took over for him. Bob was a class act, and I'd like to just read, if I can, just a couple of things about Bob. Bob Benson, 90, passed away peacefully August 1st, 2026. Bob was born in Boston, Mass., grew up in Back Bay, and cherished childhood summers at his family's farm in Acton, Maine. Bob was a veteran. At 19, he entered the Navy and earned his wing. When he made his first aircraft carrier landing at the age of 20, he became the youngest naval pilot to have done so. Following his naval service, he flew for the Navy Reserve and as a commercial pilot for Eastern Air for nearly 15 years. Bob married the love of his life, Alexis. The couple moved to Litchfield, where they raised their family and operated a small farm. It was there that Bob discovered his second calling in public service, eventually serving as town manager of Richmond, and then fortunately for us, town manager for Cumberland for 25 years. Bob approached municipal government as an opportunity to shape the future. Long before conservation became a priority for many communities, he championed the protection of natural lands, expanded recreational opportunities, and advocated for accessible housing. His vision helped shape local landmarks, including Twin Brooks, Valhalla, golf and recreation, numerous coastal access initiatives on Shebig Island when they were part of Cumberland. 96, he received the Blanchard Bates Conservation Award for his commitment to thoughtful community planning. Bob was a devoted father and grandfather. After retirement, he and Alexis spent 8 years in Florida before settling back in Ipswich, Mass. Bob is survived by his wife of 55 years, Alexis, his daughter, 2 daughters and a son, and other relatives. Having grown up in the town, I watched firsthand what Bob did, and we think down here at Twin Brooks, and I was talking to Peter Bingham before this, and everybody thinks Twin Brooks was just a rubber stamp. Well, let's buy it and go, and it was not. There was a lot of balancing between neighbors, the owners, the abutters. There was a lot of thought that went in, and look what we have today. Same with Valhalla, with the expansion of the second 9. Bob did a great job, and he will be missed, and we were fortunate, we have been fortunate to have the managers that we have, starting with Bob, Bill, and now with Matt. So our condolences to the Benson family. Bob, I know you'd like to say a couple of things. I know you know Bob pretty well. And
unfortunately, there's no memorial service for Mr. Benson because I think that, there would be a lot to be said. A lot of people would stand and make commentary on his life here in Cumberland. One thing that I just want to say that there's an important part of public service, and that's stewardship. And there was a lot of work that he did that never saw the light of day. I think that's one of the things about a town manager, that they direct traffic and nobody knows there's a stoplight up there. I had a lot of times that a lot of interaction with him over the years. He was not a man of a lot of words, but he was certainly, there was a multitude of work that he did that benefited the town and the community, and we certainly are indebted to him and his family.
And I don't want to put Pete, you or Steve, if you guys have any comments you'd like to make about Bob. If you don't, that's fine, but.
Right on, we were very, very lucky. Yeah. And it's got a legacy. If you want to see a legacy, just look around town. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Okay, the other person I'd like to recognize before we start the agenda is one of my favorite people here in town, and that's Bob Maloney. Bob turns 97, and today the town council and the town of Cumberland celebrate a true original Bob Maloney on his 97th birthday. Bob's life has been defined by hard work, family, and extraordinary commitment to our country and community. After serving in the U.S. Army Air Corps during the Cold War, Bob returned home to establish his family homestead on Blackstrap Road with his wife, Rebecca. Together, they raised 7 children, establishing Maloney's Ridge Way so their family could stay rooted here in town. And today, all 7 children still live in or contribute to our community. Bob's decade of service formed the very backbone of our town government and public safety. Named an official town treasure by the Historical Society, he served 28 years with the Cumberland Fire Department, retiring as a captain, and after playing a pivotal role in securing the West Cumberland Station. Over the decades, he has lent his wisdom to nearly every corner of town governance, serving on the Budget Committee, Charter Commission, Shellfish Commission, Board of Adjustment and Appeals, 2 town landing committees, and multiple comprehensive plans. A former director and lifetime member of the Cumberland Farmers Club, Bob remains a fixture at local Active 55+ luncheons and is a proud march participant in our annual Memorial Day parades. Beyond his formal service, Bob is a lifelong steward of our natural resources and a beloved local character. Famous for his signature pickup trucks with custom exhaust stacks, his proud loyalty to his 10th Saab, and his unofficial title as the mayor and road commissioner of his neighborhood. Even at 97, Bob continues to be a vital, active voice in town business through public discussions, phone calls, and meetings. Bob, we thank you for your nearly a century of character, dedication, and selfless service to Cumberland. Bob, we all wish you the happiest of birthdays. Thank you for allowing me to take the time to recognize these 2 individuals. Next, we'll go to the manager's report. Chris?
The only thing I have is I just want to remind everyone that this Thursday, November 13th, that the intersection of Greeley Road and Main Street will become a 4-way stop. I know that Whitney's put this out on the crier when we were just trying to we've got signboards out, just trying to notify everyone of this. We've had a lot of positive and a lot of negative about this. I just want to reiterate that this 4-way stop is coming as part of the SAD 51's MDOT traffic movement permit. We've been discussing this for probably about 4 to 5 years. Other things that came about in this permit were lighting more of the crosswalks in town, adding the sidewalk in front of the Wilson School, adding a section of sidewalk towards Sweetzer's on Blanchard Road, and moving some of the school zone signs. So this has been a big collaboration with DOT and the school department and the town. And when they give us safety recommendations, we go along with it. We did really look into this intersection, good and bad, but we've been looking at this intersection for a lot of years. The sight lines are horrible coming off of Greeley Road Extension. There is no right-of-way there, so if we were going to do something with sight lines, we would have had to take land or buy land to do this. So this became a viable solution to this issue, and we're hoping it works out well. One thing the town did kind of fight with the DOT on as part of this permit was they wanted to widen Main Street and then put a 3rd lane in, which would have caused a lot of trees to be taken down and Main Street looking like an industrial zone. So we did work with DOT and got that taken out of this. But this is really a big picture. We think it's going to be safer for the residents. And again, this Thursday, the 13th, 4-way stop. And the one down here, down at Tuttle and Middle, is working out well. I think we've only had one fender bender accident since it went in, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback for the safety of that intersection. So, and that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Anybody have any questions for Chris? The next item is public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Is there anybody from the public who would like to come up and speak? Go ahead and just let us know who you are and where you live.
Bruce Sherwin, I live on Blanchard Road. What the Assistant Town Manager just talked about brings up a question for me. We're putting in a roundabout out at the Skillins and Blackstrap and stuff, and I was wondering what the cost of that is compared to putting up 4 stop signs. You got a ballpark number for that?
The 4 stop signs, probably right in the area of, with painting and the signs, about $12,000 to $15,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought. How about the roundabout?
That would be in the millions.
What's that?
That would be in the millions.
15 million, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. That's a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the council that would like to be heard on items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go into legislation and policy. Item 26-085 to consider and act on setting the FY 2027 tax rate. We'll have our assessor come up. Clint?
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for having me. I'm Clinton Sweat, your tax assessor. I would like to go over the memo that established the mill rate for fiscal year 26-27, and this comes on the heels of completing our townwide revaluation. The mill rate will be $14.12 per $1,000 evaluation. The revaluation was a long and arduous tour that nobody really enjoys. Certainly the assessor doesn't enjoy it, neither does anyone else, but it has to be done and we've got it completed. We did have some informal appeals, or informal discussions, I should say, with the public. I met over 125 residents. It was actually quite enlightening. We gleaned a lot of information from these meetings. We made a lot of corrections to the data, to the sketches. I added a lot of homestead exemptions and a lot of veterans exemptions. People didn't know that programs are available, so I offered that up. And we also had a lot of discussions about the revaluation process and how the wheels have turned. We discussed the appeals process. I also talked, we had a lot of spirited debates, which is certainly good. I'd also like to thank Christina Silberman from the town hall. She helped me organize and schedule all these meetings. I couldn't have done it without her. So with the mill rate being set, the next step will be to get the information to the finance director so she can prepare the tax bills and get them out. I'm working on getting her that data, so hopefully the tax bills will be prepared by the end of August, and they'll get out in the mail. Taxpayers will have another chance to review, and if they feel if they're over-assessed, they can come see me. We can always issue an abatement to make any corrections if there are any. Sometimes if you feel if you're overly assessed, sometimes you may have to get an appraisal to prove that that you're overassessed. Lots of times, you have to hang your hat on something. Come and talk to me when that'll be the first step. And you'll have 185 days after the tax commitment to do that, and that usually lands around February or March of '27. So there's plenty of time to review your data. And that's about it. I know that we've been looking at sales since the reval, and I've been looking at sales from April to the end of July, that 4-month period. And I wish I could tell you that the real estate market was cooling off or leveling off, but it's not. Looking at those 4 months of sales, my new assessments are here, and things are still selling for 18% higher than what I have them assessed for. So going forward, it seems like it's a continuing trend, and what I would recommend is every 2 years, the assessing department should review land and building values and possibly try to keep pace with the market values instead of waiting, decades and then just, really, doubling or more than doubling people's assessments. Just little ticks every 2 years to keep the values in line with the market is the more responsible way to do it. And I think that's what we're going to do going forward.
Clint, if you don't mind, we're
Yes.
going to have some questions from the council. And then
Definitely.
what I'll do is open up to the public.
Yep.
And we'll bring it back to the council for their opinion. I'll start off real quick. When was the last time, Clint, that we didn't reval? And what does the state statute say on revals?
The last I could find was 2008. Now, I don't know if that was the last time they knocked on doors, but 2008 is the last time I heard. As far as the state statute goes, there's something called the certified ratio, and the certified ratio is a town's assessed value divided by what properties are selling for. And last year, we were at 57%, which means homes were selling for almost more than twice what we've had them assessed for. When that ratio gets below 70%, you're pretty much required to do a revaluation. And what the state does to hold the town's feet to the fire, they will limit the reimbursements that the town gets from the state. Your homestead exemptions, your veterans exemptions, your tree growth reimbursements, they will not give you the full reimbursement to kind of encourage you to get your values to market value.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, if we don't trigger that 70%, I'm guessing it's a much simpler process for you and everyone involved to every year, every couple of years, keep pace with this? Or is it a full-on ordeal again every 2 years?
No, every 2 years, we can look at what the market's doing, look at sales. We'll do ratio studies on a variety of things, styles of homes, ranches, capes, colonials, find out what the price per square foot is, cost of construction, and, we'll just tick those up.
Okay.
Actually, I live in Freeport, and my Freeport assessor, I love him, he's a great guy. That's what they do in Freeport. Every couple of years, my condo ticks up a little bit, my tax bill goes up just a little, and I don't even care. It just doesn't, it just kind of goes with the flow. That's better than, getting kicked in the gut every 5 or 8 or 10 years with a giant revaluation. So, and a lot of towns are doing it that way.
Smart.
Andrew?
Few sort of questions, two sort of on just data, and I don't know if we can have like graphs of what the, average or median change of both assessed value and then also tax amounts at all. It would just be interesting to see sort of, we've had so long since the last reval, and some went up. In theory, some stayed roughly the same, and in theory, some went down.
Yep.
Just, info on that. And then sort of following on the last question of, if we're doing it every 2 years, what would would the timing change of when the information would become available? Because this reval was a huge lift for you because it hadn't been done in well over 2 years.
Right.
With, in theory, fewer sales to go through and all, fewer changes to make, does that mean that the information on when the mill rate, what the mill rate would be and all that would be earlier in the year, or would it still be roughly the same timeline of getting information out and being able to be available to the public?
I'll answer that question first. Yeah, it's going to be about the same timeline, and the reason for that is there's other balls in the air that need to happen, like doing building permits. I have to follow up on 300+ building permits annually, and I usually spend most of my summer driving around and putting tape measures on properties. So that usually takes me to the end of June anyway. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast that's the timeline that it falls into. As far as making the adjustments every 2 years, that will be a little easier to manage. And we may also come up with another plan where we physically review a quarter of the town annually, and that may mean me knocking on your door and saying, hey, I'm the assessor, I'm here to measure your house. Because lots of times the sketches are wrong, the style is wrong, the depreciation of the building is wrong. So by getting fresh set of eyes on the properties, we can get that data updated, and that needs to be done. That was another thing that we saw from this reval, is a lot of data is not as good as we thought it was. So.
One question now, and then perhaps another one after everybody else has a crack at it. The evaluation before your reevaluation of the town was 1.4 billion, and now it's approximately 3 billion. I don't see anything that shows me what the new valuation was for new construction, additions, et cetera, what that was this past year and what that did to the taxes.
Yeah, it's all mixed in. I mean, it's an individual.
What was the amount of the new valuation on new construction?
Yeah, I don't know. The reason is, when I go out and do a building permit, I'm going to measure that space, and that's going to get added to the property record card, and that's the new value. I didn't have the tools to keep those separate. So the difference that you see is in the mill rate. It dropped from $25.18 down to $14.12.
You can't tell me what the additional valuation of new construction was over year to year?
I'll get that for you tomorrow. I don't have that data.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to open it up for questions of Clint, not comments on the item, the tax rate, but anybody have any questions of Clint from the public they would like to ask him? And then after that, I'll open it up for public comment. Go ahead, Pete.
Peter Bingham, 19 Brook Road. So what was the percentage that, the first question is, what is the percentage that the tax rate decreased?
Well, I don't know what the percentage is that would drop from.
Well, I mean, you're the assessor, I mean, that should be, it went from 25, what, to 14?
$14.12.
So it went up, it decreased by, let's say, around 80%. But, so one would have expected, again, if the valuation had doubled, which it did, that if the world were correct, then one would expect the tax rate to drop from 25% to 12.5%. So obviously there were some other factors. I guess the thing that I was concerned, that I wanted to see tonight was that that the person had no means of comparison. If we had seen in a presentation tonight that the average valuation of a residential house in Cumberland went up, let's say, 110%. The average valuation of a parcel of land went up 80%. And also, what did the average valuation of a commercial property be? Then when somebody got their revaluations and got their tax bill, they would have some kind of basis of comparison, so that if my valuation went up 110% and my taxes went up 120%, that I knew there was some valuation issues in there. So the public has had no kind of statistics that were put out before this that gave us anything where we did our tax bill and our valuation go up a lot more in relation to everybody else, and we just never saw any of these statistics. And I think Councillor Magoon made a very good point that this would help the public digest where we stand. And
Did you have any questions of Clint, Pete?
well, that was the
Okay.
that was the comment that and the question that we need to have more statistics out so we've got some means of comparison.
I think Jeff just did up the percentage.
Yeah.
It came up with 44% decrease.
Yeah. So that's the thing, that we're not being provided enough information for comparison purposes.
Okay, yeah, in the memo, I did provide some statistics on condominiums, vacant land, and other residential homes. I provided the median, like the median value for a condo before the reval was $315,700, and the average tax bill was $7,949 at 2518 mills. Following the reval, the condos were now assessed for $600,000, and their tax bill is approximately $84.72, and that would be an increase of $523 over the previous year. All other residential homes before the reval had a median value of $362 and an estimated tax bill of $9,125 at a mill rate of 2518. And after the reval, median home prices were $706,500. Their tax bill was $9,976, an increase of $851 over last year. So you can see that the values, almost double. The tax bill is almost the same, just a little bit of an increase. But that increase is, because of the increase in the budget, and that's going to happen year over year.
Well, thank you, Clint.
Sure.
For coming in tonight. I'll open this up to the public for comments on the tax rate, and then we'll bring it back to the council.
Great.
Thank you, Clint. Anybody from the council, from the public would like to be heard on this? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Pat Oles. I live at 32 Winterbury Court, which is the condo association right off Tuttle. I just really want a few general comments about the whole situation. The senior population in our town is 1,712 people. 900 are lifelong Maine residents. There's approximately 220 that have lived their entire lives in Cumberland. Now, what's happening with a lot of these people is that they're asset rich and cash poor. Now, each year, my taxes have gone up. Each year. This time, with the valuation, which I actually would like them to come into the condos and look inside all of these condos. Some of these people, they don't care. They've bought these condos way overpriced, and they still have money left over to renovate new kitchens, brand new windows, brand new anything that they desire to have. Now, if you're in the same development and you're living on Social Security, you don't have the assets, the cash, to be putting that into your building. I would have liked the assessor to come into my house. It's neat, it's clean, but it certainly is not up to date in comparison to some of these other condos. So that should not be the same value, in my opinion. I did email you immediately, and you said, well, if you don't agree with it, get an assessor. Well, an assessor is $500 to $900. I don't think that's my job to do. I think that there are a lot of people in a similar situation to myself. They lived here a long time. They've inherited their property. They don't have the money to keep up with this. It's fine if you don't want an older crew in town, because that's what will happen. A lot of people can't afford to keep up with it, but they don't know where to go. If they could figure it out, they would. But I think there's a value to having seniors in your community. The other thing is 1.5 to 2.5 families live in poverty in Cumberland. In poverty. These are families with kids. And it's the same situation. They have developed, or have been given land or whatever, or they've had a terrible life-changing situation happen in their life. It's a single-parent home. And they're in the same situation. And the town is good. They do give some relief to seniors over a certain age towards their tax. But there's something screwy about the whole picture of this town when it comes to the discrepancies. It's wonderful that it's one of the richest towns in Maine. But when you're on the other end of the spectrum in that town, it's kind of scary. And those are just some facts that I wanted to share. I don't know if they mean anything or if you already knew all of that, but that's my say.
We're glad you came up and said something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council.
A question?
Go ahead.
Can you tell us what percentage or a number, if that works better than a percentage, of households in Cumberland have a lower tax bill now, stayed the same, or increased? Like what the breakout is?
I'll have to get that information for you. Yeah, I didn't have that prepared tonight.
I just,
Go ahead, Jeff.
yeah, I just got one comment or question. It might be more for Chris than you, Clint, but
Jeff, use your mic.
usually everyone tells me I talk too loud, so. But my question is really, you know, we look at our municipal budget, and I don't remember what it is, but we had a under 3% increase, and I'd like to know what that total dollar amount is, but then I'd also like to know where the rest of all this revenue goes. How much goes to the county? You know, what was the increase there over last year? And how much goes to MSAD 51? And what was the increase there over last year? And just break out the actual dollar value, because, you know, when we look at the increase of the property evaluation, and it's pretty much doubled, you know, when you look at the town as a whole, but then you look at the fact that our mill rate, you know, is still, you know, yeah, it's a 44% decrease, but, you know, it'd be nice to see those dollar values, so.
Nice to have a lot of it.
We can provide you with all of that first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
So, new to the process here, but, you know, I see the mill rate and the budget. Well, they're certainly connected. They're kind of divorced, right? The mill rate's what we use to collect the taxes to pay for the budget, and the budget is, you know, what we do and what we decide to spend money on. I think the reevaluation that went on, you know, if you look at the data that the town managers provided, from 2000 to 2024, property values increased 50% in the town, right? So that's kind of the driver of the discrepancy, and why this reevaluation was, you know, so painful maybe. Whereas you looked at the you know, the normal rate of inflation over the years, it was, you know, 2-3%, and not a, you know, 50% jump in 4 years. So I know this is always a painful process. No one wants to pay taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to pay any more taxes. But you know, it seems the reevaluation was fair. It seems like there are room, maybe opportunities to improve and do things a little differently, and maybe look at you know, in the appeals process, right? That there is the assessor can come and go to the houses and, you know, and visit with individuals, and they can make their case. I think that's a good way to go, and maybe not having to pay for an independent assessor to come in and do that, right? There's a first approach, and then there's a second approach. So that might be something that we could change in future. And if we look at the budget too, the combination of the increase for the year between the MSAD and the municipal budget was about 5% year on year. So, you know, that's kind of the driver of the taxes, right? So that, well, the mill rate determines the tax rate, the budget, and what we spend, and then increases in the budget are what determine your taxes, right? And why you're paying more. So it's not, they are connected, but I think they're divorced in a way.
Bob?
I don't make any apologies for our budget. We had a thorough review of our expenditures. We came up with a bottom line. It's a very fair, responsible budget that we passed this year. I think the piece that I will not struggle with, but want to see some more information is every year we have new construction, new valuation, new additions to our revenue stream. And I don't see that, and I want to see that, because that's a piece that we use for our process of how we come up with a budget. And we all say, yes, we have, everybody gets a raise, school department has what they call a step, get a step every year, it generates about 3% on budget. Well, that's not much different in municipal government. It's not much difference in the real world either. Everybody gets a cost of living rate adjustment. May not be every year, but it is ongoing. People that collect Social Security get a yearly reevaluation of that and get a increase in that also. So I think we don't control what goes on in the county. We don't control what goes on in the school. We do control the municipal budget here. We've passed the budget. I think the piece still that I want to see is year over year, what is the increase in valuation based on new construction and new revenue streams?
Right, Andrew?
So I'll preface this by saying that I was a history major, not a math major. But I don't know if this is more for you or for, more on the Chris side of things, but it would be good to see, sort of on the data bit of, looks like the tax bills changed, for the median for residential homes, 9-ish% increase, condos, 6-ish% increase, vacant land went down by almost 16%. Commercial, where did that play out? It'd be good to see where the changes were that got us to, the actual bills and the makeup of the town of, did we have a whole bunch of just residential properties, exploded in value and commercial went way down, or has commercial come up as well, or, and all that would be good data to have for us. And then I think also, especially for the public, to be able to see that and to sort of see what's happened over time. And then if we have that now, and if we're doing this every 2 years, it'll be much easier to see the changes in the town for the next 5, 10, 20 years, and we can get a better handle on it if we start collecting that and publishing that now.
Yeah, and I agree. I didn't have the commercial data here tonight, but they certainly saw an increase as well. Probably not as robust as the residential side, because commercial is a little soft right now, but yeah, they certainly saw their increases just like everybody else. And I'll get that data for you.
Thank you. Ted?
I really like the idea of updating the data every 2 years. We all know with data, it's garbage in, garbage out, and 18 years is a really long time to not have done that reval. And I think a lot of it also comes down to expectation management of our residents, right? If you all of a sudden, I'm not saying that people's tax bills doubled, it's clear they didn't, but
No, I didn't.
these are really big increases for certain families. I know for us, it's a really big increase. We went from a house that we could afford when we bought it in 2016, and we wouldn't be able to do that now. And so I think that doing it in a more measured way so that folks are able to kind of understand, and it's not this huge shock when they get their bill, is a more responsible way of doing it. So I commend you guys for thinking of that.
And another side note that I kind of didn't want to get into the weeds with this, but I saw a lot of people come into my office talking about their valuation, and one area that we started seeing some trends were people that had Cape Cod houses. They were coming in and saying, my house compared to all the other colonials in my neighborhood, I'm overassessed. And initially, my thought was, yeah, you're overassessed. But the more people came in and started saying this, I started talking to my consultant. I said, I think they're onto something. So we did a sales analysis again of Cape Cod style houses versus colonials, and we found that we were overstating the values of our Cape Cod homes. So we actually reduced the price per square foot on all Cape Cods in town. That made a big difference. We scrubbed off about $30 million off of the town's valuation, but that brought things closer in line where they should have been. And that's just part of the revaluation process. We listened to people, we took their information, we digested it, we made adjustments on the fly, and I think, all in all, Colonials versus Capes are where they should be. So it's not a perfect process, and we do the best we can. I did the best I could with the information that I had. So just kind of give you a peek behind the curtain of what happens.
Well, we appreciate you listening to people that are coming in to you. Any other questions from the council? Okay, if there is none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll give you a motion. I move to set the municipal tax rate for FY 2027 at $14.12.
I'll give you a second, although I'm not as enthusiastic as I usually am.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Clint.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I've taken notes on all of this, and we'll get you all the information you've requested sometime tomorrow.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Item 26-086, to consider an act on setting the rates at which interest will be paid for delinquent taxes and to authorize applying tax payments to the oldest unpaid taxes. Chris, you got anything for us?
I think you see it's also part of the memo that Clint provided you. The state allows us to go up to, I think it was set at 7% this year. Last year we were at 4%. That kind of gives you an idea of where we're at last year. It's really your prerogative to set that rate. And I don't know if Clint, if you have anything else to add with that. Just go right over to the mic.
Yeah, according to the Office of the State Treasurer, they suggested a maximum rate. They set the maximum rate, and then it's up to the town to settle on a rate. This year, the state sets the maximum at 7%. Usually, the finance director has a hand in this decision too, so I don't know. I guess it's up to you guys, so.
Right.
A question.
Go ahead.
I think last year when we did this, we had a table showing the delinquent tax rates going back X amount of years. On this one, we just have what is set for this year, which is 4%. Do we have some historical data, like baseline?
This year it was set, the maximum was 7. Last year it was set a maximum of 7.5.
Sorry, I mean what the town had set the rate at. We don't have that information.
I think we were, right around 4%?
I believe we've been consistently at 4%.
Like for a while now?
Over the past 3 years.
Okay.
At least.
Yeah. We kind of split the difference on the maximum.
Okay.
This is a public hearing. I'll open up to the public if anybody has any questions on item 26-085. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for comments.
I think 4% is pretty fair. I mean, it's enough to motivate people, but also enough not so that it really hurts.
Any comment?
I'd agree with Jeff. I mean, looking at what the state put forward for the maximum rate this year and put forward for the maximum rate last year, seems the 4% is pretty fair.
I wish we had seen the information that we had last year. We had a table of our previous expenditures and rates we set. I think it would have been helpful. However, I don't think that would change my charge of keeping it at 4%.
I think 4% is reasonable. I recall for the last couple of years, I think we've been around 4 because it's not like this is a revenue driver for us. Folks who are unable to pay their bills, I think someone just said it, 4% is enough to get them motivated, but it's not enough that we're being unfair, and we're also being sympathetic to the hardship because obviously they're in hardship if they're not paying their taxes. So I'd be in favor of 4%.
Andrew?
Chris, obviously not for tonight, but I don't know if we can make a note for next year of, the table, but also just information about, there are 3,000, taxpayers, property taxpayers in town, and X number of them, we've had this with this year, last year, the year before, et cetera. So we can sort of see, what percentage, how many people we're looking at, and then without getting into anything, identifiable, but just in general, these are estates, these are, people we've been working with, and just so we got a better idea of sort of how many times this is being used and what it's actually being used for, like the circumstances around it and all, I think would help for us to get a better idea of, is 4 great? We're a little bit over half, or should we be lower? Should we be higher? Is the incentive too much? Is it not enough, et cetera?
Yeah, that's an easy document to get. I think you'll see that we do have delinquent taxes, but we collect them within a certain period of time, and we do institute this tax rate. I mean, this 4%. When it comes to you, we're looking at accepting delinquent taxes over a certain amount of time. So that's easy to put together, and I can get you that information.
So I think and I echo it, the general consensus is 4%. And if that's the case, I'll take a motion.
I'll provide you with a motion. So item number 26-086. I move to set an interest rate of 4% for delinquent real and personal property taxes for FY 2027. Be it further ordered that all payments for delinquent real and personal property taxes be applied to the oldest unpaid taxes.
Second.
Second? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 26-087, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on amendments to Chapter 315 zoning, Section 13, Office Commercial South District of the Cumberland Code of Ordinances as recommended by the Planning Board. I was just looking at you people.
Am I up? Is that okay? Okay. I'm Bridget Perry. I'm the Director of Planning. So just wanted to talk to you about a couple of ordinance changes in the Office Commercial South zoning district. And here's a little map of the OCS. It's one of the smaller zoning districts that we have. It sits in between US Route 1 and 295, and borders Falmouth. So the first recommended setback from the planning board is, the existing setback in the Office Commercial South Zone is similar to what we have on Main Street. So it's a 15-foot setback. It means that any structures must be 15 feet from the right-of-way to the start of that structure. So similar to Main Street in Cumberland. The side and rear setbacks are 15 feet. And the proposed is a 0-foot setback if the front of the building is 10 feet from the edge of the travel way. So the planning board didn't want to open ourselves up to a possibility of having a home or a building be like right at the edge of the road. So we wanted to say, give a little gap. So there could be a sidewalk in there as pictured here. You would think something like downtown Bath is this picture. So you've got travel way, roads going through, you may have a parking space, like a parallel parking space, and then a sidewalk, and then you'd have your basically a storefront of a building. So the proposal is for commercial, where there's commercial uses on the first floor, to allow a 0-foot setback. So you're thinking basically your historic downtown Main feel. And then the second proposal is to amend the allowed building height, and I've provided the definition of building height that's in our zoning ordinance. And in this particular zone, there's also a contract zone that has been revised several times, but the maximum allowance for building height in this, with this contract zone, is 50 feet. And the request is to increase that to 55 feet in the office commercial south. And so perhaps you're thinking about 1829 and what does this mean? Because the state at one point had said we're going to allow density bonuses and height increases for affordable housing. But with the amendments that came through with 2173 in 2026's legislature, they have capped that at 55 feet. So if a zoning change went to 55 feet, it would remain at 55 feet, even if the state law for a density bonus were to come in. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter. So I have the red lines here. They should be in your packet, or they are in your packet because I'm in your packet. And the recommendation from the planning board. Questions or?
Real quick question.
Yeah.
The setback of 0, is that on Route 1?
It is not on Route 1. So Route 1, any lot that fronts on Route 1 has the Route 1 design standards, which has a 75-foot no disturb buffer. So it's a vegetated buffer from Route 1.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just thinking about maintenance cost. I mean, is this being built on a public road? I'm just looking at snow removal. If we build this historic downtown, what's our future cost liability when wintertime rolls around? And maybe you don't know right now.
Yeah, I can't say right now.
Andrew?
So, I mean, this sort of seems obvious from the picture that you gave us of the condo with the 50 versus 55 feet, but just sort of intellectually, how does that extra 5 feet give us a whole nother story?
Shorter ceilings on the rest of the floor.
Very short people.
In my house, yeah. Oh, the house I live in, not the people, unfortunately, but.
Just
I don't know. I mean, my red lines might be a little off. Just
Just
trying to call
sort
out.
of the question, the
Yeah.
real question is why go from 50 to 55?
Okay, sure. So, I mean, as everyone knows, we have a developer who's interested in putting a development in up on the Skyview Drive property, which is the very southern parcel that touches Falmouth, in this zone. And the main driver is basically the economics of it. This particular elevation that you're looking at right now is a design that exists, that has been fully built out, architected, and can be used in Cumberland as is. So we could take all the design work, the floor plans, the elevations and everything, and pick it up and put it in Cumberland. The advantage to Cumberland is that without having to redesign it completely, we save time in the process. And we save money because basically your costs of your engineer and your architect to redesign the building will get passed down to the buyer. So the idea is having something that is not does not meet the state definition of affordable, but is more workforce housing without increasing the costs by allowing a pre-existing design to come into Cumberland. If anyone has been to Freeport recently, and I just was the other day, there is one of these buildings going in right next to the parking lot down by the movie theater that's now open. So one of these buildings is under construction right now.
I forgot about this part, but I also just wanted to touch on the fact that the office commercial south is in our existing growth area. And you'll also see that the majority of it is also in the growth area that is being proposed in the comprehensive plan.
I have a question. So I know this is mostly tailored to a particular developer. And I know there's not a whole lot of buildable space there at this point. Are there other projects as well in other parts of this zone that also would like for these changes to be made? Or is this really just for one developer? Like, how do you see this benefiting us in the build out of those remaining parcels?
So there really aren't that many remaining parcels to be built out. So I don't think anyone else would be able to use it. I mean, maybe down the line, if something became in disrepair, someone may want to come in and replace it.
Okay.
But right now, really, these are the only buildable lots left.
Bridget, his proposal, is that below the ridge, just before 295? So is he talking about in Cumberland putting anything on top of the ridge?
Yeah, so all of it would be on top of the ridge.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, just the way that it's laid out, those, I don't think I have a photo of it. But those commercial lots are all basically road level with Route 1. And then you kind of go up Skyview Drive, and
Right.
everything's up there on the ridge. So next to, it would almost be at the same level as the Cumberland Foreside Village housing units that are back there.
Right, but not on the very, very top, which is like, they have that 100, 200-foot buffer coming off the interstate.
Oh, right, not there. Right, you gotta,
That's-
that buffer would remain intact. It must remain intact, yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
So Bridget, just clarification, so when you say the setback is from the travelway, are you saying from the edge of the right-of-way, or?
No, from like the main travel way. So where the right of way would extend out, I don't know, 3 to 4 feet away from the main travel path. So the edge of the travel way would be basically where the parallel parking would, like, if we picture parallel parking on the street, it would be where the parallel parking cars are parked.
Is the travelway or the right-of-way?
Would be, yeah, but I think the edge of the travel way is where the cars are going back and forth, not where they're parked. So that parking space would be included in that 10 feet.
In the 10 feet?
Yeah. And I mean, the idea is to have sidewalks there, possibly some parallel parking to give it that feel. The majority of the parking that we've seen is going to be towards the rear of the buildings, really to increase that pedestrian movement and safety.
Two other questions.
No,
if I
go
may.
ahead, Bill.
So is the bottom floor on this, is this considered mixed use?
Yes.
So it is mixed use, so it can be commercial and residential. So is it planned that the bottom floor is commercial?
Yeah, so the way that's written is that the 0-foot setback would only be required for mixed-use buildings where the commercial space is on the first floor. So
But
we would
there-
only allow 0-foot setback there.
Gotcha, so there's no guarantee. So if they go for the 0 setback, then it has to be commercial on the bottom floor?
Yes.
Gotcha. And if they don't do commercial on the bottom floor, then the setback goes to what?
15 feet.
15 feet?
You good, Bill?
Yep.
Refresh my memory. Is this the zone where it needs, the square footage needs to be at least 50% commercial?
No.
Which one is that?
Let's look up here.
I know this was like last year or something. We had put that language in there, someplace in some zone.
Yeah, we changed, we did that in VCC up on Route 100.
And then, totally separate question, looking at OCS district, the wording, all commercial use development with lot frontage in this zone is encouraged to be consistent with Route 1 design guidelines. So is that, it is optional to be consistent with our design guidelines? Does it have its own design guidelines that they must adhere to?
The Route 1 design guidelines themselves say that they only apply to lots with frontage on Route 1.
Okay.
So none of this particular development has frontage on Route 1.
Okay.
Bob?
If I understand it correctly, the zero setback and the 55-foot height change is only effective if there is commercial use on the first floor of the building.
They stand separately. So the 0-foot setback is only when there's commercial use on the first floor.
And the 55 feet?
Completely separately.
Separate item.
The 55-foot is just building heights allowed across the board in this zoning district. It could
So-
include residential and/or.
You could have total residential use in 55 feet of height.
Yes.
Is that precedent setting for us throughout the town?
Good question.
I think that would be up to you. I don't know if the town council sets precedent, a legal precedent. The planning board does not, so by taking this recommendation from the planning board, it does not set a precedent for anything.
I think that I might like to see a caveat in there that there is, that 55 feet has a commercial piece to it. I think that none of us want to see 55-foot tall buildings down Main Street or Blanchard Road or Tuttle Road or Greeley Road or anyplace else.
It's only for
Fair.
this
This, I mean, the point of going to 55 feet is to reduce the costs to get a residential development in. For a specifically already designed residential building.
only for that one sliver.
It's only going to be this.
Right, but if a developer comes in,
Any more questions from the council?
you gave it to him, I'm asking for
We go out to the public.
a change.
This is a public hearing. Anybody from the public want to be heard? Pete?
You can do that with any zone thing where it's only different this zone versus that zone.
Yeah, again, I think
Right, I mean,
that they're trying to,
have to grant it.
as far as the setback, they're trying to do a little Main Street shopping thing where people can walk along the sidewalks and do retail shopping, and then they can have residential stuff. And again, as part of the mixed-use zone that we set. And on the 55 thing, one of the things that we looked into, I was a little concerned as far as if we had issues with the height blocking any kind of sight lines, specifically for Cumberland Foreside Village. And what we were able to determine was that this particular residential building is going to be at the far end Falmouth side of the property. So it's not going to affect Cumberland Foreside's Village is any kind of blocking any kind of visions that we have. And we're also beginning to work with Cumberland Foreside Village and the people on drainage issues and a lot of the other stuff, because they will be right next to each other. And again, that probably the argument I would make about requiring any kind of commercial stuff is that there's a pre-designed residential building, so that the cost to the developer and ultimately to the purchaser of the home is going to be a lot less. So I think to change to partial commercial takes away the incentive to have lower cost as much as we can residential. So I would humbly request that we not add that position. But there are nobody's going to be hurt by the height of the building, that it's going to hurt anybody's views or anything else on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Anybody else in the public? Good, Bruce.
Bruce Sherwin, Blanchard Road, Cumberland again, and I haven't heard is this a TIF project? Anything to do with TIF on this? I haven't heard it said.
Spending TIF funds or anything on it, no?
Is this in a TIF zone?
Yeah, I don't believe it is.
I'm concerned if his residence is being put into a TIF zone with people that are not going to pay property tax.
To my knowledge, it's not a TIF project, no.
No, I mean, it started that way with other developments about putting in the road, but we took it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the 55-foot height allows 4 stories to go in, and the fourth story has a loft space, and those can be sold at a market rate, and those help offset the lower costs of the floors, like the units on floors 1, 2, and 3.
The nosebleed section gets to pay the higher end.
Thank you, Bridget. Anything else from the council? Bill?
How many units are proposed to go in with this development?
Across the full development, it'll be somewhere between 180 and 220.
And
In a mixed format of single-family homes, townhomes, townhomes that look like townhomes, but really they're like 3 or 4 apartments, and apartment buildings, and there will be some age-restricted units.
And how many of these structures, like so just clarify, you said this 55 would allow for a 3-story building with a loft?
The 4-story has a loft. So it's a 4+, like 4.5-story building.
So this drawing that you have up here isn't really representative of what this thing is going to look like.
Right, I mean, it's gonna look something like this. This is the cut from the Falmouth, from the Freeport development.
The scale's not accurate, Bill.
My little red lines is.
Bridget, out of
Not
180 to 220, how many in Cumberland, or is that Cumberland share?
That's Cumberland's share.
Okay.
And how many of these apartment buildings?
1.
Just one.
A question.
Go ahead.
My fault for not keeping up on planning board matters. I apologize. Has this already gone through to where, instead of me asking you all these random questions about this development, there's already been, like, has it gone through? Has it been looked at with the planning board? Is there a packet? Is there like the site plan and all that stuff yet? Or are we
Not
still
a
talking
full
about it?
packet. We've had we've had a sketch plan.
Okay. I'm mostly curious if this is the same development where it's like you said, it's like single family phasing into higher density, and then, but I can't remember if any of that involved commercial, or what percentage of this would have commercial, or if there
There's-
were like separate commercial buildings, or how it is exactly for like that Main Street feel.
Right. So most of the commercial space would be in the mixed use.
Okay.
Along the lines of like really trying to create I'll stay away from downtown, but a neighborhood center.
Okay. And is this the same one where there aren't any affordable units, but due to their small size, they become more affordable just because of, but it's still the same cost per square foot of like a market rate, standard market rate home or apartment?
Similar, but they are designed to be more affordable workforce housing. But yes,
Right.
the idea is that the smaller units will kind of hold the prices more stable than what we've seen happening in the market.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, we'll entertain a motion. Go ahead, Bob.
I move to amend Chapter 315 zoning, Section 13, office commercial, South Districts of the Cumberland Code of Ordinances recommended by the Planning Board.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
Item 26-088, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on amendments to Chapter 223 Shellfish Conservation, Section 5, definitions of the Cumberland Code of Ordinances as recommended by the Ordinance Committee. Bob, do you want to tackle this?
I'm going to try to go through this quickly. My computer here is ready to die. I don't have any plug, but maybe I can borrow Andrew's when it does go black. These next four items on the agenda are really housekeeping. This first one is recreational, and it's basically doing away with a fee for recreational licensing for residents and non-residents.
Over 70 years of age. It's a housekeeping, because we had someone over 70, I believe, that was looking for a commercial license, and it really didn't specify. So this is really housekeeping to put in recreational senior licenses, so they weren't getting so correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, I think that's what Jen explained to me this morning. And then the next one would be the fees, just a correction in the fees for recreational.
That's, 087 and 088. Maybe we take them both, Mike, as the same.
088 and 089.
Yep, 88 and...
Yeah, I'm sorry, 88 and 89, right.
Is there anybody from the public like to be heard on either item? So now we're bringing it back to the council. Is the council okay with doing both these items?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll make a motion, but I'll include both of those in my motion.
Thank you, Counselor.
26088, I move to amend Chapter 223 Shellfish Conservation, Section 5, definitions of the Cumberland Code of Ordinances recommended by the Ordinance Committee. And in addition to that motion is 26089, I move to amend Chapter 84, Fees and Fines, Section 19, Shellfish License of the Cumberland Code of Ordinances recommended by the Ordinance Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bill? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. I can see Counselor Philson can't wait for this one.
I can't wait either.
The chicken lady.
The chicken lady.
Item, Bob, is there any reason we can't do both these together as well?
I think we can. 090 and 091. Again, this was housekeeping, talks about those that have chickens, they have to be enclosed, and you can't have them running into your neighbor's yard. You're limited to 6 of them. You can't have any roosters. You're really taking all of the fun out of raising chickens. If you don't have a rooster, you're really missing out. But anyways, let me see if I can't bring up a couple of highlights here. Chickens must be kept in an enclosed area, single-family detached dwelling. Chickens must be secure at all times and may not trespass or free range on other people's property. Odors from chickens, chicken manure, you can't have any of that, though. You might not, change your clothes every day or shower regularly, but let's make sure the chickens don't stink. And lighting, motion detecting lighting is the only kind of lighting allowed.
This is a public hearing. Anybody from the public want to be heard on chickens? I bring it back to the council. Any comments by the council?
we've done away with the license fee.
Just a quick question, I might have just missed it, but, in, which one is this we're looking at? In 90,
It's 90. Page 90?
090, keeping domesticated chickens, no more than 6 chickens allowed per, then we're looking to add lot under 2 acres. What about for lots over 2 acres? Is there just no limit
Unlimited.
at all? It's just-
Unlimited chickens.
That's just the question of, it's not mentioned, it's just, we're saying no more than 6 under 2 lots by default, over 2, or under 2 acres. By default, over 2 acres is infinity?
Yeah. Unless they become a nuisance because of manure smells
Right.
and noises, I imagine.
How many acres you have?
I mean, I have
6.
I have lots of comments, but I just
Go for it.
No, go for it, Denise.
Well, I have 2. I don't understand the arbitrary 6 chickens under 2 acres. Also, I don't know why we are forbidding people from having them in their front yards. So those are, while we're in here messing with stuff, like, can we strike some more, just redline some more rules and try to open this up more so that humans can abide by this? And, people are already not, so can we just,
I can only speak to the numbers, the 6, because when I first came on the council, they had just dealt with this, and that was one of my questions, and they said, we've never spent so much time on an item as chickens. So the question was, how'd you come up with 6? Total arbitrary number, absolute, and this is right from the councils that were here. We had to pick a number, we picked a number, and the number was 6. So.
You can have them in your front yard.
it says right here, you cannot.
I see it all the time, but
That's my point. People do it, and I think they should be able to do it, so let's strike D5, and let's strike anything in here that talks about how you cannot have a hen house in a front yard. And hen houses shall only be located in rear yards.
I didn't see that, Denise. Can you tell me?
Yeah, D5 and E4.
Right, an enclosure, but that's the hen house. Can't put the hen house, but you can, I think that's an interpretation. You can keep them secure in the front yard, you just can't put the hen house in the front yard. I think enclosure indicates hen house.
It said, no, there's 2 separate things. Enclosure, an enclosure shall not be located in the front yard. And then there's hen house. Hen houses will only be located in rear yards, unless you're in a corner lot and you can use the side yard. In no case are you able to have it in the front yard, according to this ordinance.
The definition of enclosure is the combined area of a hen house and chicken pen.
Right. And
Which
the
to me suggests
chickens
that they're
must be in the pen at all
connected.
times, therefore the chickens will only ever be in the backyard and not the front, because they have to stay enclosed.
Well.
Tig, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of things. I guess first, I'm going to give you a little bit of benchmarking data from what other municipalities do. So in the city of Portland, you can have 6 hens on any lot size. So in Westbrook, they have actually a really smart graduated scale. So if you are in 0.45 acres, you can have 6 hens. If you're on 0.45 to 0.9, you can have 12. If you're 0.9 to 1.8, you can have 50. All of that is backed by the actual science. So we've talked about the arbitrary numbers. They're incredibly arbitrary. So according to the USDA National Cooperative Extension and leading agricultural institutions, including Penn State, Cornell, and UMass, chicken health and flock welfare are determined strictly by coop and run density, not by total property acreage. So you should have 3 to 4 square feet per bird, minimum 10 feet per square bird for exercising and foraging. None of that's tied back to lot size, right? And so I think that what a lot of the strike-throughs do really well here is that we're looking at the sanitation, right? So if the sanitation is dealt with, the physical buffer is dealt with and the chickens are safe and aren't in people's, they're not foraging other people's yards, and there's no smell, like, what's the magic of the number 6? Because there's no science to back up the magic. I will also just let you guys know that there is a lawsuit in Calais. It's Oliver versus the City of Calais. It's the same ordinance that we would be passing now with the same restrictions is currently in a lawsuit. So if we were to do this, we would be mirroring something that is, currently at the Maine Superior Court. So I think just for that alone, I wouldn't move forward with this. I don't want to open us up to any legal. But I don't know, at the end of the day, for me, it's if you are not a nuisance to your neighbors, you're controlling the smell, you have a healthy flock, why do we care how many chickens you have? I mean, I am the pinnacle of uncompliance. I have 15 hens on a 1.4 acre lot. I have healthy, happy chickens. I've had exactly one complaint, and I had one complaint from a neighbor, which was in 2020 when I only had 3 chickens. We dealt with it immediately. I've increased by 12 since then and controlled it, right? And so I think it's about responsible homeownership. The last thing I think is really important, the spirit of kind of the law in Bridget included that, people in Maine have now, as a constitutional amendment, the right to raise their food. I supply at any given time 8 families with eggs for free. And the egg price has gone up 53% in the last year. It's just, why do we care? Why do you care if I think the parts on nuisance, the odor, all of that, like, absolutely take care of your neighbors, don't abuse it, but I don't know, like,
Now that we found that you have a conflict of interest, we are.
No, I actually looked it up, and I confirmed this with Matt, who I think may have pinged the town attorney, but unless I was selling my eggs, I don't have a conflict of interest. So.
Well, I might debate that, but I think we can just table this item and revisit it. We did not have a lot of public input on this pro or con. In fact, we had no public input on it. And so I'm happy to move to table it and take it back to the ordinance committee, and perhaps we can elicit some professional chicken raisers who want to give us some input, and we can draft a different ordinance.
Both items, Bob?
Yes.
Both 90 and 91?
I would move to table.
Can we not just, right now, decide to strike C1, D5, E4, and F2 regarding front yards and numbers of chickens and pass it with those also redlined? Because if we are putting this forward, or we even just keep our existing chicken ordinance in place, is that not also what is also in litigation right now?
Sorry, what was that last point?
Even if we table this, our existing chicken ordinance is in court essentially right now, is what you're saying. So
Yeah.
we have a problem here that we need to resolve, and I feel like if we're all in agreement, why not just solve it now?
I mean, I think that if you're striking I would be good with it if we got rid of the cap of 6, because I think that, the odor, the trespassing on the neighbors, all of that is super sound. The only other part, I think in section 2, it's the personal use policy. And when it talks, I don't know what the interpretation is there, but if that would outlaw charitable, non-commercial gifting of eggs.
I raise a point of order. This is a public hearing. You can't change an ordinance without publishing the changes. So if you want to change the ordinance at all, I believe we have to notify it. So I think the tabling motion is in order.
Yeah, I believe Bob is right. This is a public hearing for existing changes to the ordinance. If you want to revisit it, I think you do need to table it, then revisit it with your changes. Because this is changing into an enforcement ordinance, really, and we're getting rid of the fees, so we're not kind of regulating. It's more of a state. But what Jen kind of explained to me. It's more going back to the state. So really, our ordinance is going to be for our animal control officer to enforce. So I think if you really want to relook at everything and as an enforcement ordinance, I think you really need to table it and make some changes and come back.
Okay.
I think that's pretty much the sentiment of the council. Do we have a motion to table?
I'll provide you a motion to table.
I did that, so I'm
Sorry.
looking for a second.
I'll give you, how about, Bob, how about I give you a second?
Thank you.
Thanks. We have a motion to table. All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 26-092, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on amendments to Chapter 261, Taxation, Section 3, Criteria for Participation, and Section 5, Determination of Eligibility and Amount of the Cumberland Code of Ordinance as recommended by the Ordinance Committee.
Again, this is a housekeeping measure. We have, in the past, in the ordinance, put a specific figure to it. This allows us to change it every year as the town manager recommends. Item E, 261-3E, the maximum family household income shall be, and in the past, we set it at 91, and now it has the changes, has set annually by the town council in May.
Vice Chair?
I do have a question about 261-5A, those like A, B, C, D, E of number 2. The language has been changed to the annual cap set by the council on the first one, like bracket of income, but not the rest. Is this meant to kind of eliminate A through E to where those brackets are determined by the council every year? Or is it just this one from 60,000 upward to the annual cap set by the council? You know what I mean? Like, are we gonna have to do the same for all these other like sub-items? Like set those annually, or are those pretty fixed there?
This change is really for your cap, your maximum cap of the 91,000. All the rest will stay the same. If you
Okay.
want to address each individual item, you can. This is really to change it so you're not tied to the 91,000 and you can set that cap every year. And the town clerk will put a reminder in to put it on the council agenda to set the cap every year for the council. To look into each individual categories is a whole different conversation and change to the ordinance.
Go ahead.
I'd not in this agenda item, but I think it would be good for us to be looking at those individual, the 5, 6, however many different breakouts that we have in there, because 30,000 or less today is going to be very different in a few years of what that means, and with inflation, things are going to creep up, but we're not going to be keeping pace unless we're going in and changing the ordinance, every few years and all. I think it would be good to have the conversation to give us the flexibility to deal with that on an annual basis, as opposed to being stuck with these.
Yeah, I agree with you when I read through it. And actually, Whitney's tied to this as well, as we were looking at this. And the 91,000 doesn't tie your hands, but the rest of them kind of do. So it probably wouldn't be bad to set it yearly and set each category yearly. But this change is really for the 91,000 and what's in front of you tonight. Not saying that this could come back with another amendment to this ordinance through the ordinance committee.
This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public want to be heard? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for further comments or motion.
Just request that if we go forward with this, maybe it also goes to another review at the ordinance committee with those other brackets at maybe whatever next meeting you guys are gonna be dealing with the tabled chicken ordinance, so maybe at the same time, perhaps.
We can make note of Andrew's point, raise it at the next ordinance committee and see if it's.
My other point would be if we can switch the order. It just seems weird to start with for me,
The high
it starts
one.
with the high and then come down low, where, the least amount of money you can, get help with versus the most. I would flip it around and say, all right, people making X or below, they get the most, and then just an order thing, but that's me being nitpicky.
The question,
Bill?
is there value in just, there's always a cost to, right, updating an ordinance. Do we send this back to have it updated and make some of those changes before we approve it? Is that?
Twice.
When's our next
let's change it
bundle?
once instead of change it twice, right? Does that make more sense?
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, you could also table this, go back, have the ordinance committee re-review it, and come back with another recommendation.
I move to table item number 26-092.
Second.
All those in favor of tabling? Unanimous. Last item is not a public hearing. It's to set item 26-093, to set a public hearing date of August 24th to consider and act on amendments to Chapter 48 Coastal Waters of the Cumberland Code of Ordinance as recommended by the Ordinance Committee. This is just to set a public hearing. Do we have any discussion on it?
Need a
Is there
motion?
motion?
Yeah. I move to set public hearing date of August 24th to consider and act on amendments to Chapter 48 Coastal Waters of the Cumberland Code of Ordinances as recommended by the Ordinance Committee.
Second? Second by Bob. All those in favor? Great. We'll go into new business. Tig, we'll start down with you.
I don't have anything tonight.
You had a good vacation.
I had a great vacation. I missed you all desperately. It's good to be back.
Bill?
I know a subject near and dear to everyone's heart here, but I know there's there'll be a workshop on the proposed rail trail, I think on the 19th of August, before the next meeting, and I think there's a site walk and a meeting with the butters in there as well as part of that. Is that?
Right. And it is not a public site walk for butters, and there'll be 2 council members there.
Yep.
So it won't be a council meeting, and then we'll have DOT there as well.
Great.
Jeff?
Yeah, so, couple things, $20 for the food pantry. And, we passed the ordinance change on, the building height there down off of Route 1, off of Skyline Drive, but, I just look at if that developer comes to us in the future for a public road, this nice little downtown mimic of Bath, we're gonna be looking at a substantial cost increase with snow removal and so forth. Got sidewalks, and you only push from the building to the center of from the road to the side of the road and from the building to the curb so many times before you gotta get the snow out of there. So I'm fine with the design concept of the building, but I think as a town, we gotta be ready to tackle that cost down in the future. But I got a couple other things. I don't know, I think we all received an email regarding the crosswalks in West Cumberland and maybe trying to get those painted. So I don't know, Chris, if that's something you could look into. I don't know if they're main DOT crosswalks, but it's the one on Route 100.
Look into it. They put the tip downs as part of the Krusty Lantern, but it's still such a dangerous intersection to put crosswalks into without any type of lighting or the flashing lights. But I can look into that. I think the only one they allowed to go in was the one across from the pizza place going over to the Rusty Lantern. I think they're really waiting for the roundabout to go in, but let me look into that a little bit further
Thank-
and see if that.
Thank you. And I guess the last piece I have, which will take me a little bit longer, is, you know, as many of you folks know, I attribute my success in life because of this town. And one of the reasons that I'm even here as a town councilor is I wanted to give back to the community that gave so much to me. I think of all the people who have helped me over the years and what they did for me. And the list of people is probably so long I've forgotten some of them. Some of them remain in Cumberland, but many have moved away for multiple reasons. I think of how far this town has progressed in my lifetime, and it has improved leaps and bounds. Many years ago, people had a vision for Cumberland and always looked to improve it. That vision is what has made Cumberland what it is today. When I was a child, I never imagined the field we'd have in West Cumberland today. All we had back then was a basic baseball field that was built with volunteer effort on a Sunday afternoon. And honestly, I'm not even sure if the families that stepped up to build it even had the town's blessing. This drive for improvement is what brings people to Cumberland. Let's be honest, we have an amazing town with amazing facilities and amenities. I share these thoughts because over the weekend I was approached by a long-term family regarding the announcement of the new mill rate. They shared their struggles and wondered how much longer they could stay in Cumberland. My heart sank as I could tell they really wondered how much longer they would be able to make it all work. They are the ones who paved the way to build this community so this community could thrive, and now they may be forced to leave. I started thinking about my responsibilities as a counselor, and then thinking about all the improvements that have occurred in my lifetime: multiple school upgrades, Twin Brooks, Knights Ponds, Rhine Forest, Valhalla, and multiple facility upgrades, multiple road reconstructions. All these improvements cost money and were paid for by the same people who are struggling to stay. They may not be able to enjoy the community that they have helped to build. I turned to how can I help these people remain in their homes, and my mind turned to the concepts of wants versus needs. A year ago, we decided to expand the solar field, and when I cast my vote, I felt like I didn't have all the information. The information I was seeking was about the cost of the needs this town is facing, but more importantly, what they are. If I don't fully understand as a counselor, how is the average citizen going to understand? You see, you can't get upset with people wanting something. If everyone thinks everything is fine and there are no challenges ahead, many people have come here attracted by what we have to offer, thinking it would be great if Cumberland had X, Y, and Z. And yes, I probably would agree with them. X, Y, and Z would probably be nice. However, I probably would view X, Y, and Z as a want and not a need. I believe as a counselor, we need to establish wants versus needs in the next year. We need to provide our citizens with this knowledge so that they can see the whole picture and decide if something is truly needed or whether it's a want. Currently, we have citizens in West Cumberland with a water supply that is challenging to say the least. Greeley Road needs some major work so that it can be repaved and the investment of paving last. We have 2 or 3 fire trucks that are approaching 25 years old. We have multiple air packs on our fire trucks that are over 25 years old. We have a 23-year-old front-end loader in our Public Works Department that's critical for winter operation. I believe we just made a good investment in our school system with the new Carolyn Small School. I view all these items to this community. I view all these items as needed to this community so we can continue to function and provide citizens with the services they deserve. This information I just shared should be available for all. The few things that I shared above are just a few of the issues coming down the road that we must solve. We can talk about consolidation and regionalization, and we may have success in that area soon. However, we must also face the reality regionalization may not solve all of our problems. I am not against progress and improvements. However, I believe that we need to make sure we can support what we have before we continue to provide funding for wants versus needs. I believe we need to curtail our wants and focus on our needs. If we want to allow this town to be sustainable for all that live here today. If our actions continue to push people out because of our tax burden has made it unsustainable to live here, what have we accomplished? Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Are you saying that the solar field was not a need, that it was a want?
No, what I meant by that was I'm sitting there making a decision based on trying to know the finances of the town. And I'm sitting there thinking, is it a good investment, right? Like, where should we prioritize this?
Okay.
So, good question, though.
Before I talk about whatever, follow up to your comments. I know you've been asking for a separate, like, CIP workshop, potentially something that might need to be multiple workshops because there's so much to deal with, beyond just what we have on the schedule, you know, that we have coming up, like what's depreciating, what we need to replace. Do we have is there like a date? Do you know,
No,
are
I
we
think,
gonna do this?
talking to Matt, he's working on, because there is a lot of, you're spot on, there's a lot of information. He's working on a document
Okay.
to get to us, and then we can work on that.
Okay. And then second as well is following up on, and I know a lot of this is like by the state and whatever, but road acceptance standards so that we can figure out if we're gonna just blanket accept all new roads as public roads or not, so that developers know when they put something forward to the planning board that the council either 100%, yes, you can assume that we are going to adopt this road, or not, so we don't have the same issues that come up. And I know a lot of that is already set. There are standards that we follow, and there are some edge cases there that made this kind of come up recently, but whether or not that is also going to be a topic for discussion at a later time
Yeah,
that we know of.
Well, just speaking with Matt, again.
Yeah.
But I know he and Jeff are working on,
I provided him with like a concept, like my,
Okay.
you know, all I did was take 10 minutes in Microsoft Excel and threw something together. It's not pretty, it's a draft format, but, you know, it was just an idea.
Okay.
And, you know, I left it in his hands from there.
I think he's planning on meeting with you,
Yeah.
Jeff, and then if you guys come out with something, a draft to send to the council, or to send an ordinance, first we'll do that, and.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more comment on the solar field. The only reason I brought that up is that was like the first big vote I had to do when I was up here. So that's why I just thought back to it.
Got
That's what prompted me to write it in there.
No, got it. I think, when we did the math, it was going to save us a lot of money, so that's why we wanted to do it, right?
No, completely
So I
agree.
just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that, you
Yeah.
know, we were aligned there and that I wasn't missing something, and that
Yeah.
I understood you correctly.
No,
Okay. I want to like be positive, so I'll say the positive first. I'm glad that we were able to get the reval figured out, able to vote on that tonight and move forward. I wish we had had like a formal presentation with some shiny graphics, some, you know, figures comparing things, just because this was such a huge lead up. Like, we've been doing this for a while now, and the public is expecting, I guess, findings, or I was expecting findings. I don't know if, and again, I don't want to get into a place I shouldn't be going, but just, I am looking forward to getting the facts that we asked for tonight, and hope that it'll be posted on the website for others as well, who are most likely wondering the same things as far as what percentage of town is going to have a higher tax bill, who stayed the same, and what's lower. Because the third and a third and a third, I don't think is what we're going to see, and it would have been nice to have that information tonight, but I understand we didn't have it. But I'm looking forward to getting it, like I said. Also, apologies, Bob, on trying to implement chicken changes without the proper protocol. I was excited. Thank you for keeping me in check, as you do. Two things, since I didn't go to that comp plan hearing, sorry. There's 2 typos. I'll just say them now because I'm going to forget to send an email. Page 37, programming is missing an M. And page 76, in the footnote, wildlife is missing its second L. And then finally, I've legally changed my name. I'm no longer Denise. Sorry, I'm no longer Denise Larson. I'm Lily Morgan. So you can start calling me that now. It's my maiden name, and I like this name better. Denise is gross. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Andrew?
Just one question, Chris, with the stoplights, or the stoplights, stop signs that are going in at Main Street and Greeley Road Extension, you said that was part of the school's MDOT plan, and it'll include lighted crosswalks and other spots. Does that include the crosswalk at Carroll Lane, having one of the nice flashy crosswalk signs instead of just, right now it just has a stop or a crosswalk sign, and then at Greeley Road there's the nice flashy one to warn people?
Yeah, they did not include that crosswalk in there. That crosswalk kind of appeared over the years, and it wasn't a DOT-installed crosswalk when it was a DOT road, so the DOT is not sanctioning that as a crosswalk. So if we want to light it, we need to invest in that and do it on our own. It's not part of this project. But we are looking into that where we have everything else lit in town, that we are more than likely going to install them there as well.
All right. It'll be better now, I think, because you won't have people whipping around
Right.
the road. But
We've done them all, and that will probably be the last one that doesn't have it, so I will put those in.
great. I think that's it for me.
Great. Bob?
That project down there on Route 1 that we just changed the height on, it's it's in excess of $200 million project. So I know, Jeff, you brought up about plowing the roads and maintenance there. The developer made it clear that he is expecting public services there, and because of the income, that will revenue drive to the town. So I think when we talk about plowing the roads, I think it's more appropriate or more directive if we place it towards residential use rather than commercial. One of the things we don't want to be doing is driving business away. We want to be trying to bring revenue to the town. So I think this one here, if it goes through what he's planned, it will be a significant revenue stream for the town. Next thing I have is I want to have a finance committee meeting soon. I want to talk about I think I mentioned this before, looking at a 5% reduction in the town budget, what that looks like just as a cut, and then how does that same cut work if we apply that towards regionalization. We have a meeting on the 26th of September with all the towns in our group, and that includes the schools. And I think if we have some homework done before then about how we can apply regionalization efforts, I think it's beneficial for everybody. Workforce housing. Last time, and Andrew and Tig were missing. I brought it up again. And Denise kind of challenged me, Lily, if you will, as to making a concrete proposal. So Bill Follett and I have batted this around, and Bill has come up with a draft proposal for formation of a committee to look at workforce housing at Stiles Way. So before our next meeting, we will disseminate that to you all. I'll get together with you, Mike, to decide whether that is a formal agenda item or an informal agenda item. And then finally, I'd like to make note of a couple of passings here. Bob Benson was the one mentioned earlier this evening. Elaine Butlin, family, her daughter still lives in town, Karen Butlin. Karen, a really, really first-class lady, lived on Greeley Road for decades. Her husband went to high school here. I knew his younger brother extremely well, Jeff Butlin, who also was passed. And then Patrina Gopert, long-term resident, long-term commitment to the community. Her grandfather was a Christensen. She was a Griffin on Harris Road, passed away at 90-some years old. So my best wishes, condolences to all those families involved with the loss of a loved one.
Mike?
Okay.
Sorry, but I just wanted to touch base. Bob, I pinged Matt about scheduling the finance committee meetings for the rest of the year. I haven't heard back from him yet. I think maybe it's probably lost in his inbox somewhere, but I will follow up with Matt and Helene to get, I would like all of the finance committee meetings to be scheduled for the rest of the year. So I will take that as an action item. I think he had suggested the 24th of August for our next one. But I will make sure that that gets taken care of ASAP for you, so that you have runway for the meeting in September. Okay, is that okay with you?
Great.
Thumbs up.
All right, that's it for, I don't have anything for new business. We're gonna go in.
I just want to say earlier, I changed my name. I said Denise is gross. I find it personally does not fit me. I did not mean to offend anyone with the name Denise who likes it. That's all. That's all. Just, it just slipped out. My bad.
I have 3 chickens named Denise.
Do you really?
No.
Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll give you one.
Go ahead.
I move to recess to executive session pursuant to MRSA 4056A, Retown Manager's Evaluation.
Second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, going to executive session? Thank you.